Good morning, everyone, and welcome to day one of the Women Would Drive Summit, the third annual here at Phoenix Raceway. I just spent the prior 30 minutes speaking with some of my friends, my colleagues, Cindy, Lyn, Tina, about this event, and I was just talking to Latasha over here. It feels a bit emotional to see this. You think about it, you talk about it, you plan for a year. In Cindy's case, you plan for many years to get to this point, and to see it in person, it is something truly special. So thank you all for being with us in person today. I also would like to welcome in our live stream audience. They are joining us as possible by Gainbridge, so welcome to everyone that's joining us today on that as well. There are 427 of you joining us today. I'm told that that's 367 women and 60 men in the room with us. So thank you to the guys that are here today as well. 38 states are represented within the room, and 6 countries as far as Europe and Asia as well. Many of the faces in this room were there. Raise your hand if you were at that one. And then for my very last, hey Cindy. And then for my very last question, if you have attended all 3 with us now, please rise. When I met with Lyn and Cindy prior to the weekend, we were over at Lyn's house, which, by the way, very impressive when you walk in and see the front half of Lyn's car hanging on the side of her wall. It's quite a view. But we were talking about just the journey that this community has taken, and I kind of likened it to, you have the first version of the iPhone that came out, and then you have a software upgrade, or then you have a hardware upgrade. And this is a little bit of a bonus question, but if you were part of the Women Shifting Gears community that started in 2020 on those virtuals, it's the bonus. Raise your hand. Wow. That's really cool to see. Again, thank you all for being here. We're going to have 2 days of collaboration, community, connection. I know that there are students here with us from across the country. I am so excited for these 2 days for you. This is time that will be well spent as you network and meet people that will, without a doubt, have impact on your career and going forward. I know we use this quote a lot, but they say, if she can see her, she can be her. And that is what is rooted in this community, and I cannot wait for you guys to take in these next 48 hours. Well, I know I already asked you if you have gotten any sleep, Latasha, but let's go ahead and bring up the president of Phoenix Raceway, Latasha Causey. She ended up making history, becoming the first African-American woman president of a racetrack in NASCAR. There was a lot of celebrations here this weekend, but I'm sure there were none like what's going on right now. Latasha Causey, please.
Thank you so much. Can you guys hear me? Okay, there we go. Sorry, I have done a lot of talking this weekend, so my voice is almost gone. So first of all, welcome to Arizona. You said 38 states. Welcome to Arizona. Welcome to Phoenix Raceway. We are so honored to have all of you here today. And congratulations to Women in Drive for your third. And I know you said you get a little emotional here, but you have so many people here in the room and the work that you guys put into making sure that you have a phenomenal event. I looked at the agenda over the next 2 days. It's impossible to figure out what breakout session to go to, who to network with, because it's just so robust. So I know you guys spent a lot of time doing that. I also have to take a moment to say thank you to the Phoenix Raceway team. We just hosted the end of NASCAR season here in Phoenix, a championship weekend here over the last few days. And so we've just been a little busy around here, but what we wanted to do is make sure that you all had a phenomenal time as well. We hosted over 125,000 people over the weekend. We had 4 races here in Arizona over the past weekend. So we haven't gotten any sleep yet, but we will. We we will after this amazing event. So again, I just wanted to say welcome. You guys will get to tour the facility. You'll get to enjoy the facility. Please make our home your home and have a really good time at the event. So thank you.
I did see you in Victory Circle on Friday night avoiding champagne. Did you manage to escape it all weekend?
I escaped it the whole weekend. And so did my shoes. So did my shoes. Yeah. Thank you.
Another big round of applause for Phoenix Raceway and Latasha Causey. You guys, start making your way here. I'd like to bring up the co-founders of WIMNA, Lyn St. James and Beth Paretta, as well as our ringmaster, ringleader, knows everyone on the planet, and if she doesn't, she will find you, I promise you, Cindy Sisson.
Did you get a mic? Welcome, and thank you, thank you. Are we spot on or what? I mean, seriously, it is the time. And I want to thank Tina and Cindy for the production of this, and thank the track as well, because if you saw what this looked like on Sunday night, think about this as a race here that just happened. So, but I just want to make one comment about the timing of everything. I've been in the sport a long time, 50 years next year, and I know many of you, and I didn't realize how many of you actually have told me how isolated you felt in your career in this sport. And I think for the first time, I hope you will never feel isolated again, because this shows there's no reason to be isolated. So thank you for showing up. Thank you for being here for us, and we're going to go. We are just starting. Cindy.
Thank you, Lyn. Is this on? Can you hear me now? Yeah. This is so humbling. I mean, every single one of you, I hope I've touched in one little way. I was really proud when you signed up to say, hey, woohoo, you're here. And now to see all of you, that's a lot of emails. My inbox is always full. But we're gonna have a really good time, great spirit, and I'm just so proud of all the partners, the track, the speakers, the keynoters. This is gonna be a great event.
All right, welcome everybody. I think the most important thing that we can take away from seeing how full this room is how needed this group is, and how it is our time. I will say the idea of diversity for our industry, it's good business. It's whether it's for your own career and for our industry at large, it's why you all have shown up for these 2 days. And so we're going to hopefully across these 2 days, you're going to find out you're going to learn some skills that you can take back into your own life. Instead of the why does this matter, we know the why. That's why you're here. We're going to delve more into the how, and that way you'll get some takeaways, and you can hopefully implement some things in your own life. And then the other thing that I would definitely recommend for all of you, we always say you're only as good as your network. Ideally, you're going to make so many connections in these 2 days. These are people that you're going to rely on for the rest of your career. So introduce yourself, go up to people, and hopefully you are going to walk away enriched after these 2 days. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
You want me to stay here? Yeah. Okay, am I ready? Okay. So, I already got, I'm logged, yeah, I'm logged.
So we have all audio options available to us.
So it gives me incredible amount of pleasure and pride to be able to introduce our two guests that I'm going to have a little fireside chat with that you guys have an opportunity to sort of sit in on. First we have is Steve Phelps. I hope he's mic'd up. Steve is the president of NASCAR, has been since 2018, only the 5th president in the 75-year history of NASCAR. He oversees all operations, the 15 racetracks in IMSA. The architect of NASCAR's 5-year industry. I was action plan. Yes, have a seat, thank you.
Where do you want me?
You can sit right there in the center. He was 2020, under his leadership, NASCAR became a leading voice in the national conversation on racial equality and social injustice and for diversity, equity, and inclusion. He grew up in Vermont, which I found kind of interesting, and went to Catamount Speedway with your dad. So he does have a racing background as far as a race fan. He has a degree in economics from the University of Vermont, was a member of the track team, and also got an MBA from Boston College. I think this is important for people to know, particularly live streaming and everything. How do you start? Maybe it doesn't always the pathway doesn't always seem obvious, and so that's why I wanted to share that. He was with NFL for 14 years and as Vice President of Sales and Marketing, and he was with Wasserman Media. So welcome, the President of NASCAR, Steve Phelps. Next we have Jill Gregory. Jill grew up in Modesto, California, was a NASCAR fan since high school, has a degree in journalism, worked at Bank of America, the Senior Vice President of Motorsports and Marketing, was also with Sprint Nextel as Director of the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, joined NASCAR in 2007, oversaw marketing, media, communications, broadcasting, diversity, and inclusion, was Adweek's one of the most powerful women in sports. The Sports Business Journal was a game changer for women in business, and in 2001 became the Executive Vice President and General Manager of Sonoma Raceway, and currently now is in charge, or the founder and owner of Gregory Strategy Group, Sports and Brand Consultant.
Hi, Lyn.
Hi.
Good morning.
Come on. So, we have two powerful leaders in this sport, and who've been in it a long time, have had some varied backgrounds. Steve, I'm going to start with you. That, under your leadership, I've been watching NASCAR, as many of us have, for a long time. And I think there have been more changes in the last 5 years under your leadership than I think I've seen in NASCAR for many, many years prior to that. Some of it was organic, I think, in the growth, but some of it was also a reaction to things that we didn't even know were coming. So could you just talk a little bit about that? When I read that you did have this sort of strategy of the next 5 years, but then things happened, COVID and a lot of other things. So, how has it been for you to pivot and to deal with that when you probably had a plan going in?
Yeah, I think, it's great to be here. Lyn, thank you. Appreciate everyone coming. Last time I was up on stage here, there were a lot of race fans that have been overserved, so you guys can get started shortly and we'll see how you do relative to the race fans. But it's been it sounds cliche, but it's been a journey. And so for us, since I would say 2018, we were very intentional about change. And I think the change was important because it signaled to anyone who was watching and listening that we were not going to do the things the way we had done them the previous 20 years. And it's not change for change's sake, it's change that drives the sport forward. So I think there are a lot of things that happen that are more visible, like changes to the schedule, that you can see that, and hey, cool that NASCAR raced its first ever street race in Chicago this year, or went to the LA Coliseum and built a racetrack inside. Those are very visible optical things, but it's really the other things that we're doing that are changing in all areas of our business. And you have to do that, because if you're not changing, you're standing still and you will be passed. And that was important for us. So, and there are some hurdles that we had. COVID was a hurdle. Where we went with social justice was important and very intentional. So I think for NASCAR, I think we are in a position where people are now kind of leaning forward and saying, well, what are they going to do next? We want to get to a place where people are not saying things like, wow, they built a track in the LA Coliseum. That's unexpected. We want to make sure that we are bold and innovative in every part of our business. And I think the last thing I would say, and the change that is now happening, and it's very important for us as a sport, is to come together. And when I say come together, I'm talking about our industry coming together. Race teams, our drivers, the tracks that we don't own, everyone kind of being with one voice. And I know that, again, it sounds super cliche. If we don't do that, we will not optimize the opportunity in front of us. I'm counting on that we do, because right now we're kind of fits and start where we work together with our industry, and we came together from a COVID perspective as an industry, but we need to do that in a much more meaningful way, and if we do, we're going to have a lot of success.
You just hit some points that truly is what Women in Motorsports North America is about. First of all, we're not here to change the sport. A lot of people introduce us that way or perceive us that way. We're here to grow the sport, to help grow the sport. So it's changed for that. It's not trying to change it. We love the sport, you know? So that was, and then I just think the comments that you made, which is probably why you're one of our allies, because we are on the same page. The other is that the industry gets together. I know we're competitive. We're competitive people and but there's times you've got to get together. So thank you for hitting points is what Women in Motorsports North America is about. So Jill, my first impression of you, which was really by not meeting you in person, but following you in your career, is that you're just a badass. I mean, you know, I heard this name, I read about you Auto Week, I saw you, you know, I mean, I saw all these accolades that you were getting, and so I figured she's just a real badass. And then I met you and you were so nice, you know. But you've got to have some stories along the way where you had to be a badass to get everybody to pay attention, to do what you know is the right thing to do. And I know, reading both of your backgrounds, there's so many similarities. I mean, and I don't know exactly the timing of your leadership under Steve when you were with, you know, NASCAR doing it, but it helps that there's alignment in your company, but also in your senior leadership above you. But there's got to be some stories you might be willing to share where maybe it wasn't such an alignment.
Not all of them, for sure. Well, I would say that today is an awesome day for me because if Lyn St. James calls you a badass, then that's a pretty good day because I consider what you do and the drivers that are in the room, that's a true badass. Yes, we have to be tough or do some things and, you know, put ourselves outside of our comfort zone to get results. But what you guys all do is, that's the true badassery. If that's a word, I just made it up. But I think that, you know, seeing everybody in this room, I think whether you call it having to be a badass, having no fear, you just have to have faith in what you're doing and your strategy, whatever that is. And Steve and the leadership team at NASCAR have always put a very clear understanding of what we're trying to achieve. And I think that anybody in this room, as long as you know what the goal is, then you can put your badass tendencies to work and get it done. And sometimes, you know, you have to be tough or focused, but that doesn't mean you have to be mean or cruel. And I think that, you know, lessons learned across all of my career and even the leadership team at NASCAR is that you can be effective, you can be tough, but you can also do the right thing. And to me, the right thing is always the right thing. And what we did in 2020 at NASCAR, I think is a great example of that. So, you know, yes, badass doesn't have to be a negative term. In fact, I would hope that every lady
meant to be positive,
room,
right?
No, I don't think you did, but I think everybody in this room has to tap into their inner badass at times to get results, and that's okay. And I think sometimes, as women leaders, we tamp that down a little bit. So I think it's okay. If you've got the right idea, you've got the right strategy, then let your inner badass shine.
And you kind of answered my second, which was your leadership style, because everybody has, I think, an authentic way of leading, you know, because first of all, hopefully it's the authentic way of them, of being authentic, and it's hard sometimes to even do that. But could you identify what your authentic leadership style is and helping? You kind of sort of touched on it, but maybe expand on it a little more with advice to all of us.
Yeah, there's probably several people in the room that might want to comment on my leadership style. Hi, guys. But I think that the key is to build a good team, and like I said before, have a shared goal, because with a shared goal, you have shared accountability. So what are we trying to achieve together? But then hire good people and let them do their work. I have a keen attention to detail, but I also learned over the years, and this wasn't always the case, that you have to let your people do what they do best. And if you've hired the right people, you've given them the right direction or the right blueprint of what you're trying to accomplish, then let them fly. And I think that's not always easy. I think there are a lot of, if not all, type A personalities in here. The reason why we're in here is we want to network, we want to get better, we want to grow. And it's hard to let go of some of those details, but have faith in your team, give them the support they need when they need it. But if they don't need you, then stand back. And I don't have children myself, but I imagine it's a lot like parenting. Like, give them all the tools that they need, and then let them do
get
what
out
they
of the
do
way.
best.
Get out of
Yeah,
the way.
get out of the way, for
So
sure.
I'll embarrass Jill right now because it's what I do. I will say this: Jill is not just the best female leader that has worked for me. She is the best leader that has worked for me. Her people would take a bullet for her, and that's because they know that she would do the same for them. And that trust that exists it's an important part of the leadership. Being an effective leader.
Thank you. That's big. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Steve, I want to go back because I've heard you speak to it before, and it's powerful, which you mentioned the social injustice. There was a lot of risk with that. I mean, there was so much history within NASCAR coming from the southern roots with the Confederate flag, and it was just a huge amount of risk. And you took it. You just took it on, and you put the stake in the sand, that was just a hugely moment.
Yeah,
It was a huge moment.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Think back to 2020. I wouldn't say fondly, but it was a lot. And I think I promise I'll get to the question, Lyn. When we stopped racing on March 13th, we were unloading. Trucks had just loaded in Atlanta. They loaded the trucks back up. I remember talking to Jim France, and I said, Jim, we got to shut down. He's like, we're not shutting down. And I said, no, we have to shut down. And so we did. I called Marcus Smith, who was in the Caribbean, and I said to Marcus, we're going to shut down in Atlanta. He's like, what? I'm like, everyone's shutting down, we're shutting down too. And so on that Monday, a very small group of senior leaders, there were 5 of us in total, got together and figured out a blueprint for how we were going to go back to racing. Jill was one of those, and Steve O'Donnell, Darrell Wolf, Craig Neeb, myself, and we figured out a plan for how we'd get back to racing, which we did 71 days after we'd shut down. So May 18th, Darlington Raceway, we went back to racing. First sport back to competing. A month later, first sport back to competing in front of race fans, or in front of fans. That was a big, big, important moment for our sport. And our sport came together and did something special to get us back to racing. And it took an entire industry in order to do that. And then social justice. Told you I'd get back to the question.
That's all right.
To me, as important as being the first sport back and getting back to competing, and being the first sport and the only sport that actually ran a full season. No other sport did that. We ran a full season. And it was hard. But the death of George Floyd, it was a moment in time in this country. It was important that we did something. And so starting in, interestingly enough, in Atlanta, in front of no race fans, and Jill was one of the people that really pushed in order, like pushing either literally or figuratively up my back and saying, you need to do this, we have to go, which is what we did. And so we took a stance that was maybe not the most popular for some people, but it was important for our sport. And then we banned the Confederate flag a couple weeks later. And again, there were people that were not very happy about that, thought it might not be the right opportunity for our sport, that it would be a mistake. I was surprised how quickly it paid off. So did I get some really colorful letters and emails and texts and some hateful things? Yes, I did. And they are, But in the end, it was bringing new people into our sport, which is exactly what our sport needed, what we needed. Jill was the CMO for 10 years, 12 years, whatever, for a long time. And I was the CMO before.
I wasn't always the CMO.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, but what we were trying to accomplish is we wanted to get younger and more diverse. And we had some great programs in place, like the Drive for Diversity program, and other things that we're doing in diversity and inclusion. We were not breaking through. We just weren't. Great programs, and people would hear about, like, wow, you're doing some great things. Why isn't it working? It didn't work because of that massive impediment that was the Confederate flag. It just was always the thing that inhibited our growth. So we removed it, and the floodgates opened, and we became a place that had new ownership, that was diverse. Michael Jordan, Pitbull. We had employees. Our employee base now looks a lot different than it did. So we have a lot more women coming into our sport, into our company, and a lot more people of color who are coming into our company and making our company and our sport better. And that wouldn't have happened if we hadn't banned the Confederate flag. And importantly, it wasn't just the stance on social justice. It was, what are you going to do that's intentional to welcome people into your sport, which is what we've done since that time, and that was really important. But listen, there are lots of times when people say, Steve did this or Steve did that. It wasn't Steve did anything. It's my team did this. We banned the Confederate flag. Jill was one of 10 people around a table that I said, I think we should ban the Confederate flag today. And who's in? No groupthink. Do you want to do this or not? And don't do it personally. Do you think this is a good business decision? Because we're a for-profit company. And to a person, I went around the room, looked them in the eye and said, are you in? Yes, 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 yes. And that was it. And then we went and told our owners, Jim and Lisa, we think we should do this. And they said, okay. I called Marcus Smith at 3 o'clock. And I said, Marcus, we're banning the Confederate flag. You need to be in. And he said, I'm in. He said, when are we doing this? I said, 5 o'clock. And he's like, you gave me 2 hours? I'm like, well, we just made the decision like 2 hours ago, so I thought I'd give you plenty of time. And we did. And I'll just tell a quick story. Sorry, I'll let Jill speak. So one of the best things I've ever done in my career is I called at 4:45, I called Brad Doherty, and I said, Brad, we're going to ban the Confederate flag at all of our facilities. And Brad is one of our owners, loves himself some NASCAR, and Brad said nothing. I said, Brad, are you there? And he choked out, not in my lifetime did I think that would happen. And wow. That to me was just a moment for me personally. And then we've seen growth. And I think it's not just of people of color, it's young people, because we became an authentic, relevant brand. And so we have to keep doing that. We've got to show people that we are a different brand than they think or they thought. And we're going to continue to do that.
Or that you used to be. But leading on to, yes, that is, and even though you say it wasn't Steve, you still made that decision and then got the buy-in. It's the leadership, and I just, take that credit, please. But you also leads to the other changes of leadership that have happened recently in the last few years, really, which is Latasha Causey, who's our president here at the track, Lori Warren, who I just met a few minutes ago, who's the president of Richmond Raceway, Julie Geese, who was the former president here and is now the president of the Chicago Street Race, and Amanda Oliver, who serves as NASCAR's internal executive ally counsel, is set to become chief legal counsel beginning in January, and of course Jill, who had a leadership position as vice president and CMO of NASCAR before moving on to lead Sonoma Raceway. So you're demonstrating, it is not just checking boxes, and a lot of diversity issues I've watched, we've all seen, is check boxes, and then we're like, okay, no, where this is a deeply rooted time of change. So thank you. I'm going to thank you a lot. I'm going to thank you a lot because
Lyn, it works, right?
I know,
and
but
it is.
it
We've
takes
got
leadership
incredible,
to do it.
women leaders in our company, and if we are not going to be intentional about it and hire young women coming into the sport, hiring people of color, putting it through the entire, up to the C-suite, how do we expect an industry to do that? If we can't do it ourselves, I'll just talk about NASCAR. How do we expect our race teams, our racetracks that we don't own, how do you expect them to, drivers coming in, if we can't do it ourselves, and we're supposed to be, quote, leading this sport, then we're failing, and it won't happen. And so we are doing it, and we are going to continue to do it because it's important, and most importantly, in the opening, because it works. That's why you do it. We are for profit, and having more women and more people of color in our sport is working for us.
Good. I'm going to go back to both of you. I'm going to open this up. Can you look back into your backgrounds of growing up or early years of influences that you could say, because as we get older, we do start paying a little more attention, I think, to our past. Is there that you could, remember that this, because of this person or because of this experience, that it has helped shape you to be able to do what you're doing and be in the position. So if you could, I'm throwing that out to both of you, take a moment.
I've talked for the last 10 minutes, so Jill can can take the hard one.
Actually, it's not a hard one. I'll start, and this is a little cliche, but back to my parents and my upbringing. I don't think that my parents said, hey, let's train her to go be the CMO at NASCAR. It was not the consideration set, I can promise you. Although I did go to a track owned by a colleague here in the audience. How you doing, Ken? 99 Speedway was my home track. I didn't go there because I liked racing. Little known secret, I didn't like racing at all. But my cousins took me there, 99 Speedway, and then on to Sonoma. But what my parents did was just instill a belief that you could try things. And what's the worst thing that can happen? You could fail and you could move home. And if you grew up in Modesto, California, that's a big fail. It's just, not that I don't love it, but but my dad would say that no matter what job I was considering taking, and we would do a list of pros and cons and what was what were the good things and bad things, and he's like, what's the worst thing that can happen? You could move home. And that just stuck with me. I don't think consciously, but it was just I always had a safety net. I felt like I was supported. And as I went through my career, I was lucky enough to have some leaders that did the same, that kind of let you try and fail. But, look, I've been in the industry a long time, and I came up at a time when many of us did, yourself included. I know Cindy, a lot of the peers in this room, when, promoting female leadership wasn't the thing. It didn't mean growth. You didn't have a seat at the table. And so I think part of what I learned through my journey is I learned from some leaders how not to act, what not to do. And sometimes you have to take just as much from those experiences and how to mold yourself for your next step. And those influences, while they may have seemed bad at the time, can end up being really pivotal in your overall development. Steve was a leader that I worked with very early in my career. I know the theme of the day is probably networking, and we all talk about the connections that you make today. I was an account executive at an agency, and Steve and his team, I worked with Steve and his team at the NFL. But fast forward 10 years later, he was looking for a new role at a NASCAR headquarters in Charlotte, and we reconnected. I hadn't talked to him in years, but just that ability to say, hey, I was interested in that job. We worked together, and if you remember, how does this look? And then I got my start in NASCAR. And for all the industry people in the room, whether it's NASCAR or any form of motorsports, it is a very small world. So you keep those connections. All you really have is your integrity, your word, and your relationships. The work product is the work product, and I think we all, we wouldn't be here today if we weren't good at that. But it's those relationships, how you care for them, how you cultivate them over the years. That's where the influences come. And sometimes you don't know the influence that someone has had on you until many years down the road. But as you reflect, you kind of look back on those pivotal moments. So I think things like today, while it may seem like a moment in time, I think kind of you have benefits from those for a long time to come.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would say my mom was a very big influence in my life. And my mom was a strong woman who came from nothing, and she persevered and raised 7 children. I was the last of 7. My mom thought I was special. I don't know why, because I wasn't special. But she always said to me, I've actually never told anyone this, ever. So here it is. My mom said, "You're going to be a U.S. Senator." I'm like, I don't think so. I'm so glad to be the president of NASCAR. I do not want to be a U.S. Senator. Hopefully, it's
now
a
you
lot
know what
more
you
fun.
don't want to be.
Has its moments, like doing media rights deals. But it is. Yeah, I've never told anyone that. So
Wow.
you don't X that or whatever we call tweeting now. But but my mom had a big influence in my life, and if she, looking down now, looking at me today, and my father as well, because I lost my father when I was 23 or 24. He didn't realize that I would go on to work at the NFL, a sport that he loved, or to go on to work at NASCAR, a sport that he introduced me to at 5 years old at Catamount Speedway, which unfortunately is an industrial park now. Very sad of the state of short track racing, so anything we can do to make sure, whether it's dirt or asphalt, that we keep those short tracks and supporting them, it's really important. So, and I think if you are, it's still all kinds of different entry points now into motorsports, whether it's video games, or it's sports betting, or it's television, or it's content, or it's going to a short track. Whatever it is, whatever that entry point is important. And we need to make sure that we are meeting that potential race fan where they are. And then when they come on board, we need to nurture them and make sure that they understand and feel welcome, and that this is an awesome experience. Latasha talked about entertaining 125,000 people. We had an awesome weekend here at Phoenix Raceway. So it was, it's an exciting time to be in motorsports. If you think back to 2018, whew, it was ugly. All motorsports, no one was doing well. It's a gross generalization. But you look at where we are 5 years later, all motorsports have been lifted. And we need to keep doing that. We are competing against other sports and entertainment properties. We are. We are not competing with each other. Tide lifting all boats, that kind of thing. That's what this is about. And that's why this is so important, why it's so powerful.
So you took one of my questions away, but that's
Oh,
okay,
I'm so
because I'm
sorry.
about strong women.
Hey, it's a
First
good-
it was
it's a
about,
good thing.
but you hit, and thank you for sharing that.
I haven't seen the questions, Lyn.
No, I know. Well,
She likes to surprise you.
yeah, I do, a little bit. Well, I wasn't, anyway, you're a dad, though, and you have 2 daughters, so at least now so I'd like to kind of have you share, since you've been so authentically open, which we really love, but as far as advising your daughters, or what life are they experiencing now, and advising them, I know it's hard as a parent,
Yeah.
because they don't listen to us often and all of that, but.
So, I'll take the 60 men in the room. I also have 2 sons. So I would give the same advice to all of them, although I think that, my daughter was, she did her honors thesis at Boston College, and she did it on what it's like to be a woman in sports. And she interviewed 25 different women of all experience levels and all ages, including a couple of people in this room. And it was the amount of work that has happened, what has happened in the last 30 years. It's a different place, and Jill alluded to that, than it was 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And that's a good thing. We still have lots of work to do. So the advice I would just give them is, just same thing with just work hard, do what you want to do that makes you happy. And so I don't want, so my daughter graduated in May, and she now works at NBC Sports. She's in their marketing strategy group. I'm super proud of her. And my son graduated from SMU, the business school, and he now works for an agency in New York City. Whatever they want to do, they want to work in sports, they don't want to work in sports, I don't care. I just want them to be happy. And Jill talked about it, is if you provide them the tools, they're their decisions, they need to do that, and that's exactly what I've tried to do.
Well, you talked about the culture change, because I kind of come back with, by the way, this is Parity Week, which Gainbridge and Parity are sponsoring the Billie Jean King Cup in Spain this week, and the Annika Sorenstam golf tournament in Naples, Florida this week, and they're also one of our sponsors. And I was recently on a press conference, virtual press conference with Billie Jean and Annika, which to me was a proud moment, because motorsports was now part of a story of women's sports, which even though I've been involved with the Women's Sports Foundation and I was the solo representative, where now we have a collective representative. But I can remember, and Billie mentioned it during the press conference, that how many times when you would go into a meeting for them getting sponsorship for her tournaments, or for tennis, me trying to get sponsorship, I would always try to have this conversation with, because 99% of the time it was with a man who was in charge of the budget, and to ask them, do you have daughters, or have you had women in your personal life where have been denied opportunities or something? And if that story would come out, then you knew you had a chance to resonate. That was 30 some years ago, 20 years ago maybe, but at least now I think culturally so many people are experiencing their life differently, and so consequently tend to be more open. So fortunately we don't always have to have those conversations to be able to have a conversation, really, So, but it does, to me, still validates a lot of the depth of what people believe, is because if people believe what they personally experienced or their loved ones have experienced. So it's all part of life, because we have to believe to be able to trust and go forward. So you've kind of given, I want to know if you've given a lot of advice, but if there's one piece of advice or one person in your life that you'd like to thank. So either a piece of advice that you would want to be able to really, you've kind of given all that a lot as well, but also is there just somebody special, that you would really like to thank in your career for you to get where you got, to be where you are, to be who you are?
Yeah, I think for me, you have to pick one, but I would say my dad, but I also give my mom a lot of credit. She's pretty low key. She's the calming influence in the whole thing, but just the two of them, I'm very close. I have three, I'm one of three girls, so I'd say my dad, because, this was in the time when dads aren't what they are today, and he didn't have a great upbringing, so his mantra was, I'm going to do everything for my girls that my dad didn't do for me. And he was at every game, every tennis match, it was mostly athletes. We went to game. He was just a sports fan, and he instilled in me a love of competition and a love of sports. And I think that there are a lot of studies, and we don't normally, I haven't heard about them here, but at other conferences, when you participate in a sport, motorsports, a team sport, an individual sport, it prepares you for business, it prepares you for life. And so that spirit of competition and, yes, wanting to win, I think is what he really instilled in me, and that's probably who I would thank.
Cool. Dads and daughters are special.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say I don't have someone in particular. I do think it's important. I never had a mentor, which is unusual, right? If you get into a certain level, there's someone that helped you grow and saw you to the next level or whatever. I didn't have that. It's really important, mentoring. So you as senior leaders, or if you're just starting out, find a mentor or be a mentor. It's important. And certainly female mentorship, and we talked about allies and men as well, right? And I think that's how you get better. So Bill talked about make sure you're networking while you're here. You should do that. But when you get back to your organizations, whatever it is, if you don't have a mentor program within your organization, start one. It is an important tool in order for your company to get better. And that's why you do it. And it will help you too, or will help the person that you are mentoring, yes. And it will make you feel good too. And that to me, I think is an important part. So again, if you're an organization that's super small, okay, then just come together and figure out how you're going to do this together. But if you're in an organization at scale, have a mentor program. We started, employee resource groups 3 years ago. Important in order to do that. And we're having success because of it. So one of our employee resource groups is called Women in NASCAR, or WIN. And they're a kick-ass group. They're badass. And they do really good things for our company that allows for the growth of the sport.
Well, I cannot thank you. Did you want to say something else?
Well, I was just going to say do the official mentoring, but also try to find someone maybe it's someone you meet here. It's sometimes not always as easy to have intimate work conversations with someone that you work with. So maybe you find a kinship with someone here, you click with someone, and you can ask them for advice. Sometimes maybe that's easier if it's not in your own organization. It's probably a little harder to find. But I would just say, try to do that. And don't feel like you have to solve everything yourself. Because that's what we all had to do. And for me to see all the women in this room and how many opportunities there are for everyone, take advantage of that. Because what you put together, Lyn, is incredible. We talked about the growth from year to year. But it's up to everybody in this room to take advantage of that and make it work.
I cannot thank you both enough for not just being here, but being great representatives of what our sport is about and what our sport is, where it's going and how we're going to make it better, and just sharing some really personal stuff that meant a lot to me, but it really means a lot, I think, to everybody, because we're human beings, and we're just trying to do a good job, and we do in the sport that we love. So thank you for being a great ally and a great leader and a great example of the leadership, and we're going to keep coming. We're going to keep coming.
It's great to be here.
Thank you.
Have fun.
Thank you again to the magnificent Lyn St. James, the badass Jill Gregory, and Steve Phelps. I can promise you, if either of you ran for Congress, you have my vote. As we continue along with the day, we're going to kick off with our first panel discussion. What I love about this year's Women with Drive Summit, driven by Mobil 1, is that we're doing panel discussions based around a theme. The first one we're going to kick off today with is called Building a Community. This discussion will focus on the diverse ways our panelists are growing communities centered around common goals and connection. First up, I'd like to welcome our moderator to the stage, Eva Gregory. She is the manager of marketing partnerships motorsport for Hagerty since 2022. Eva started in motorsports in 2016 while still in college at the University of North Georgia. Her first job was at the Atlanta Motorsports Park, first as a member concierge and then special events coordinator. Welcome, Eva. Now for our panelists, and just so everyone knows, the microphones will be on the chairs for everyone, so we can kind of move this along today. Ryan B. Allen from Mobil 1, he's the automotive brand and partnership manager, North America. Ryan has worked for ExxonMobil for over 8 years now. He's currently responsible for brand strategy, campaigns, PR, social media, partnerships, and sponsorships. He's won several awards over the past 5 years with ExxonMobil. It's a big room, I get it. Judy Kean is the co-founder and partner of EPARTRADE.com. EPARTRADE connects manufacturers and buyers in the performance and racing marketplace, and she is a top sales producer. Started as a senior sales manager of PRI and SEMA nearly 26 years ago, and keeps a finger on the pulse of the industry by regularly traveling to race events across the country. Pippa Mann is a racing driver coach and Shift Up Now leader. Shift Up Now is an organization to help talented female drivers find the funding needed to compete. Pippa has competed in the Indianapolis 500 7 times. She has wins in what is now the Indy Next Series and even has a class win at the famed 24 Hours of the Nürburgring. She is a very passionate advocate for women in motorsports and a definite follow on social media. Mia Walsh from the Porsche Club of North America. Since 2021, Mia has been the National High Performance Driver Education Chair, overseeing all activity in the USA and Canada. She actually began her performance driving career in 2008 through the PCA's High Performance Driver Education Program. She now helps execute over 245 or more HPDE events and 20 PCA National Instructor Schools each year. She was also on the Women Shifting Gears podcast. Welcome, Mia.
Is it on? Can you guys hear me? Okay, great. Fantastic. Good morning, and thank you so much for that introduction, Amanda. As she said, I am Ava Gregory. I am the Manager of Marketing Partnerships for Hagerty, and I'm so excited to be moderating this panel because I have had the pleasure of working with all the companies represented and even a few of the panelists that are joining. Despite being a moderator, I've gotten the green light from Cindy and Lyn to give a brief plug to Hagerty because I think the unique thing about our panel is that we're all representing the brands and we can really talk about what they're doing in the space for women in motorsports. So I think Hagerty's done that in a couple ways through our Hagerty Drivers Club program, where we create an environment and opportunity of camaraderie during our Cars and Caffeine events, as well as our Women's ERG, where we can just encourage like women in this space and supporting, if we need mentorship or opportunities such as that. So let's go down the panel, and Ryan, why don't we kick it off with you? Will you define how you, or maybe the company you work with, define the word community?
I'm going to take a little bit of a cop-out on this one. When I first read the question, I'm just going to go with what my initial gut was, and that is community is everything to us. So when we look at a brand such as Mobil 1 with a long heritage within motorsport, there's a lot to continue to build on. And for us, the automotive community, as we all see here, can sometimes feel very small. But when you get into it, it's very nuanced, and there's a lot of different interests, a lot of different people, and a very, very big back catalog of folks who touch the sport before you even get to the track. So for us, when we look at it and what we're all about, from how we work together to how we come to market, community is imperative for us, and it truly is everything.
That's so good. And literally, this is a whole community right now, so we have like the best panel, in my opinion. Judy, why don't you give us your definition?
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me here today. So we're a very small company compared to your company. We're 3.5 people disrupting the industry, putting a trade show, a motorsports search engine online. So how we focus on a community is having the entire racing industry, whether you're buyers, suppliers, racing businesses, you have access to this platform. So we've built a community. And then we also produce technical webinars where we have 100 to 350 people on. We are now producing our 4th annual Race Industry Week, where we're going to have thousands of people on. So it doesn't really apply to us inside, but we have the same mentality of helping this industry, very small entrepreneurial companies to large companies.
I think that's important though, right? Like in community, you have to have maybe the ground, the building, and then it grows and evolves into what this has become and what so many companies here represented do as well.
Yes.
Pippa, why don't you go ahead and give your definition of community?
So with Shift Up Now, we are an organization that's primarily focused on funding female athletes in motorsport. But the big thing with us is we're not focused on one person. That's not interesting to us. Just as Steve said when he was up here from NASCAR, we are interested in helping women rise. We are interested in helping the tide rise. And our community of Shift Up Now athletes, these are women whom support one another, whom cheer for one another, whom commiserate with one another when things don't go well. And my role, technically, I'm the CEO of Shift Up Now, but in reality, and anybody who has ever tried to work with a group of race car drivers, I think, can relate to this, I am cat herder in chief. That is my role at Shift Up Now.
I love that so much. Mia, why don't you give us your definition?
So I'm fortunate because the existence of Porsche Club of America is to bring a community of Porsche brand enthusiasts together. And by far, out of all the marks that are out there, the Porsche people are absolute fanatics. So that makes the community portion extremely easy for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll selfishly say I love Porsche. I'm a big Porsche fan. So
Actually, everyone who knows that I'm with Porsche Club, they tell me what car they drove or the first one that they've ever driven. And so it's born into people's bloodlines as well.
See, and that's what's cool about community is it comes from memories, personal experiences, you know. I think we all get opportunity to have that in our own communities. So now we'll kind of go down the panel and I'll ask this. At the companies that you each work at, let's talk about how that company exemplifies the meaning community or maybe some initiatives that you have within your role. Yeah, we'll go down the line.
I didn't know which we were going to snake back around. So for us, really with Mobil 1 in North America, there's an African proverb that we've really adopted as our own. And it's if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so when we look at how we exemplify it, it's living that proverb as much as we can, collaborating across the board and trying to understand internally what we have, trying to understand externally how we can bring that together. And so really for us, like the community piece, that is just an imperative part of our operating procedure and just core to us.
I love that. I've heard that proverb before, and it's so true, isn't it, right? Team effort, you get so much further. Obviously, your willpower can get you far, but all right, Judy, what about you?
Well, again, being only 3.5 people with this company, what we did is we're really focusing on, like when Lyn and Cindy reached out to us launching Women in Motorsports, we made sure we had them on one of our Wednesday webinars. So we helped them launch to the industry this fabulous event. So we were proud to do that, and now we're approaching our 4th annual Race Industry Week, where we are, again, going to have Beth help us put some Women in Motorsport panels together, making sure we just cover every aspect of racing, including women in motorsports.
I love that. Pippa, go ahead.
So one of the big things all of you in the room may or may not know about Shift Up Now is it really is run by the racers whom are part of Shift Up Now, myself being one of them and one of the active racers. My real job is I'm actually a race car driver. I get paid to drive race cars, to drive alongside gentlemen, gentlewomen drivers. And so Shift Up Now is my unpaid passion project. And unfortunately, an unpaid passion project that's trying to help fund women in motorsport is an incredibly difficult thing to try and do all by yourself. So our community is not just the racers whom are part of Shift Up Now, not just my business partner, Erin Vogel. The most important part of the Shift Up Now community is our membership group. These are the people whom literally pay Shift Up Now $10 a month or $100 a year to be closer to our athletes and drivers, to join us for online webinars, online fan forums. We're about to start doing monthly giveaways. We send them monthly newsletters. But these are the people who provide us the resources to literally allow us to run Shift Up Now. Shift Up Now wouldn't exist without the community of motorsport fans whom are willing to help us and support us be there. So that's how we really exemplify community, because they are our lifeblood, the fans who believe strongly enough in what we're trying to do that they decide they want to be part of what we're trying to do.
Pippa, that's so great, and there's so much value in the community of partnership and your membership. Do you want to talk a little bit more about what your membership offers?
So we're actually in the process of completely rebuilding the Shift Up Now membership platform, and it's due to launch in about 1 or 2 weeks. Sarah Montgomery, another Shift Up Now athlete, was recently named our director of membership, and she's been working incredibly hard behind the scenes rebuilding this platform. So we offer a stronger connection to our drivers. We do online events. We're aiming for 1 online event each month next year, exclusive to our members. We do giveaways for our members. We have offers from the brands whom we work with where they offer discount on, sometimes it's racing apparel, racing helmets. We're about to be able to offer a discount to track days for our members next year. So we're trying to give back to our community in return for their support for us. So it's something we're really proud of and something we're working really hard to try and make stronger and stronger to really provide value to the people whom are helping us.
Thank you for sharing that. And Mia, what about you down with PCA?
So just like Pippa's organization, the Porsche Club of America is a volunteer organization. We do have 24-ish paid staff members, but we have about 10,000 volunteers in North America. And unlike Pippa, I have been racing since 2013, but no one's paying me to do so yet, if anybody's out there wants to give some money. But I think it's really important to know that a volunteer organization, the baseline of it is that people are passionate about sharing what they like to do. And with Porsche Club of America especially, we have thousands of events throughout the year, and they could not be held unless we had the volunteers willing to run them. We do a lot with Porsche brand, Porsche Cars North America, and simply last month there was an event at Laguna Seca with over 100,000 people in attendance, and Porsche Club of America provided all of the workforce to run an event like that, along with the Porsche Car North America staff.
And that event is an amazing event, I will say.
Yeah, that was a great one. It was fantastic.
No doubt there. So Mia, will you tell us a little bit about PCA, obviously working so closely with the Porsche over like umbrella, right? How do you find it support, or how do you benefit as the PCA by having that community relationship with Porsche?
That's a great question. So Porsche Club of America, we have 150,000 members, which is a huge number. And we're the largest car mark club in the world. We beat out the size-wise all over the world. So Porsche, as the manufacturer, recognizes what Porsche clubs worldwide can do for their brand. And it's a real symbiotic relationship, because we provide services and support and enthusiasm and events for their brand, but they also support us financially, as well as providing national events and international events where we do receive invitations to attend, or they'll have corrals for us specifically for Porsche Club part owners and cars, and so it's a very symbiotic dual relationship that we have with the brand.
Thank you for sharing that. I'll ask one more question, Mia, about PCA. So obviously being with PCA National, how do you find yourself corralling the communities that make up all the regions?
Okay, great. So with National, we have a lot of programs. We have club racing, we have high performance driving, we have rallies, autocross, drive and dines, and social. And my role, I'm kind of a middle management per se. There's one of me for all of those different programs. And we have a great communication feed with all of the regions and the leaderships in those regions. So it's a pretty easy process communicating with one another and then providing those opportunities for anyone. So if I'm based in Baltimore, I can call up a region in Pacific Northwest and attend any events that they have. So being a member in one region affords you the opportunity to participate at all different levels. Specifically globally as well, I have a daughter who was studying in Singapore this year, and I flew over with her to get her settled in, and I emailed the Porsche Club of Singapore and just said, hey, I'm going to be there, anything going on. They picked me up with a caravan of 10 cars. I went on a trip to Malaysia with them. Never met any of them before, but being part of the Porsche Club of America, you are now family with Porsche owners all over the globe, and it's pretty special.
That's an amazing story. I think Jill Gregory mentioned during the Fireside Chat how valuable the introductions and networking are, and I think that community really emphasizes that. It really is an opportunity to connect anywhere in the world. So wow, what a great story. Thank you for sharing that. So we'll come back to Ryan. The next question is, in what ways does the company that you work for support women's initiatives and advocacy for women in motorsports?
So when we look at obviously a massive corporation, there's a lot of initiatives going on, and that one of the core ones for us is continuing to drive and getting women into engineering. So it's been an initiative that's been core to who we are for a very, very long time. And the real reason that bleeds over into the motorsport world so well is, yes, we have the drivers, the teams, the principals, right? We have the at track. But when you look at what we do in our product and who we are as a brand, this long legacy of formulating a product that helps win on the racetrack, it goes far deeper into formulators and testers, supply chains. Like, there's so much work on the back end before you even get to the racetrack that, in our opinion, counts in that motorsport space. And so from formal mentorship to recruiting to getting middle schoolers to getting high schoolers, interested in engineering is a core value for the corporation, and it has been for a long time. When we look at Mobil One specifically, as we kind of move into the initiative space, for us, it's key to the success of motorsport long term. And one of the big things that we continually try to drive forward is looking at the grassroots space and figuring out how we can get more women in there. Is it purely a funding? Is it what is it that we can get more women into this area? And so at the bottom of the pyramid, the more women we get into the system, as we move forward over years, we can see progression through the ladder and hopefully break through into the professional space, a la a NASCAR, a Formula One, an IndyCar, and see champions come all the way up. So for us, that's continually going to be a space that we advocate within, and there's a lot of initiatives there. And for us, it's the motorsport side. We have the formulation side and the core engineering, and then also what does it look like around the sport? And for us, it goes even to what can we do to get more female photographers, right? Like, what is the point of view and who can help tell these stories within motorsport in a great way? So there's a multitude of ways that our corporation, our brand, is trying to help advocate for women within motorsport. And this is kind of still at the beginning. As this continues, this room gets bigger and bigger every year. How do we continue to drive that forward and continue to be strong advocates for diversity within motorsport?
I'm so glad you just described the women in the background. I think that we can all attest it is very easy for companies to claim their initiatives for women and advocacy, but it's really just them checking a box. And so it's not always forefront, it's not always on screen, it's things that are happening behind the scenes. And that's something that's really valuable to your point of engineering, to the education aspect of it. So definitely, thank you for sharing that background. How, for women in this room and watching, How would you recommend younger women who are interested in joining the space, especially as you're talking about branching out, creating new opportunities, where would you direct them to or encourage them to look at?
If you're in this room, I will direct you to this table right here, which are my incredible colleagues. This is a great place to start. As it's been said, continue to network. We have a host of scholarships, grants, and other things too to continue to push forward women within engineering, but I would say that the best place to start is right here at this table.
That's perfect. Thanks, y'all. Okay, Judy, I'll ask the same question. So in which ways does EPARTRADE really support women's initiatives and advocacy in this space?
Well, again, being 3.5 people, I'm going to take it to our audience. EPARTRADE really is a trade show online motorsports search engine that works around the 3 days in Indy, 4 days in Vegas. We cover the other 50 weeks of the year. So we're a neutral gender platform. So just like when people sign in and have a badge, we make sure we quantify you, making sure you're a racing business. But what I've noticed so much, because I see buyers, I see people registering with us, and more women are joining as engineers coming from professional race teams. I could see who's on our technical webinars, and we've got this one wonderful lady who worked at HPD as an engineer, and now she's become a lawyer, and she wants to target our audience. So it's been really fun to see racing girls, racing engineers join our platform and use it. So I've been doing this for 25 years because I worked at PRI for 20 years. It's been fun to see the emergence of ladies in our industry and with technical positions.
Absolutely. And the strengths that they bring, right? Like, yes. Men and women have different strengths. So yes. I love that. Thank you for sharing that answer. Pippa, obviously Shift Up Now is solely focused on women in motorsports. Heck yeah. But tell us, what ways do you really support your drivers, your athletes? How are you creating advocacy for them?
So this is incredibly difficult for me to do sitting down, because normally at this point I would be up and pacing around the stage. However, I will do my best to give this little speech sitting down. Shift Up Now has a firm belief that when we fund female athletes equally in motorsport, and we give them the opportunity to have test days, and we give them the opportunity to be in good equipment, and we give them the opportunity to have coaching, and we give them the opportunity to have enough sets of new tires, we give women the opportunity to compete as equals in our sport. We see this time and time again when programs are properly funded, such as the Iron Dames this weekend with their historic win in the World Endurance Championship. And finishing second place overall in that championship, also backing up their historic win at the Spa 24-hour race last weekend. This is an example of what can happen when we fund women properly. But for the vast majority of female drivers, we are still asked to do more with less the entire time. So many of the brands who are standing up and saying that they are funding men and women in sports equally are not yet including women in motorsport in that spend. They are leaving us out there to do less with more, and then looking at us saying, well, you did less, so why should we continue to back there? So many brands are still viewing women in motorsport as a risk. You only have to look at the results of Danica Patrick when she was racing in IndyCar and when she won the race in Montague. And there's a huge portion of the motorsport, not just fan base, but industry, sadly, that still talks about her win as a fuel mileage win. Okay, how often do we talk about Alexander Rossi's win at the Indianapolis 500 as being a fuel mileage win? So, what Shift Up Now does is we are working incredibly hard to try and bring brands to the table who believe in helping us fund female athletes, who believe that women can compete as equals when women are funded as equals. We are trying to bring brands to the table who want to benefit from the halo effect that has been shown for brands who support female athletes. There is data and research that the Wasserman Collective has literally put together this year that proves that female athletes are more likely to be trusted ambassadors. They are more likely to be viewed as role models. They get better engagement on social media. And yet, it is still so incredibly difficult. So we work to bring in funding. We work to try and tell women's stories. We work to try and promote our races to as wide an audience as possible. And we're working to get the word out there. But once again, to repeat what I said at the start of this segment, this is not about one woman. Shift Up Now and women in motorsport in general should have zero interest in trying to find one woman. There are a whole host of female racers who are incredibly talented if they just had the opportunity to be in the equipment and have the funding to compete.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of work done, or a lot of work to be done in this space.
Sorry, I did my best not to pace around the room. That's
The energy came through. I think we got it. No, but I love it, and it's so valid, right? We need to have connectors like Shift Up Now. We need to put athletes in front of the right people who can back them and support them and advocate for them, because we can't always advocate for ourselves, or that may not always be enough.
And I would like to take a moment as I sit up here on this panel to thank Hagerty for being one of the brands that walks the walk and actually helps us fund athletes in motorsports. Sabra Cook and Lonnie Unser are two of the Shift Up Now athletes who had Hagerty support this year.
Yeah, Hagerty. Mia, I'll ask the same question.
Okay, thank you for letting me follow Pippa.
Yeah, no, it's okay. But see, Porsche...
I am joining Shift Up Now as soon as the break comes. I'll be logging on and becoming a member. So thank you. Yeah. Equally as enthusiastic, I was sitting here last year, and I believe Cindy and Lyn were up on stage, and they asked that same question. And the response one of them gave, and I don't recall which one it was you need to invite them. Women need to be asked to join. And I thought, that is the most simple response to such a difficult question. And so this year, Porsche Club, I spent the last year and a half on bringing more female drivers into the Porsche Club sports, high performance driving specifically, and holding seminars on how to encourage women to attend and helping them find sponsors to make the events more friendly, et cetera. And this year, we had 10 women-only driving events, which I was super happy with. And when I got on the plane yesterday, I had a call from my Atlanta region called Peach State, and they are doing their first in 2024, and the leader of the club said, we sold out in 4 hours. And so that just gave me chills and really pumped me up to be here today, because if you make the ask and you make it a welcoming environment, they will come. I'm not building racers at this point, but just getting more women behind the wheel in performance driving, whatever that looks like, racing as well. There is a bridge that goes from high performance driving into racing. So just getting that ask out, I think, is really super important.
That's definitely valuable. And there's so many leaders in this room who, if we just create the environment and make the opportunity, we can really continue to grow women's presence in sports. Thank you so much.
Can I just add as well, we accept all marque cars at our events, so you don't have to have a Porsche to come out. And there are driving events all across North America. And so if anybody, any lady out here that wants to get on a track, please call me and I'll get you out on a track.
That's perfect.
But is it more fun in a Porsche?
Yes.
I'll add to that note, Hagerty insures all kinds of cars.
Factory filled Mobil 1.
Yeah. Awesome. All righty, we'll go down with our last question. So obviously we are at the Women with Drive Summit. Woo, this is amazing. Let's talk about how in your company, in your own communities, can WIMNA, Women in Motorsports North America, help support your initiatives or help encourage the initiatives you're working on?
I want to go back to the answer 2 questions ago with the African proverb, right? And we want to go far, so we must go together. And so the people in this room are critical to that. And some of the incredible work getting done across motorsport, across the automotive industry is a great start, but it's the passionate people that will continue to move it forward. And so when we look at Women in Motorsport North America, a little bit of a mouthful there, for us, it's bringing opportunities, bringing, race car drivers, stories, and incredible women into the pipeline. You have the eyes and the ears. You all are living this every day, and it's just continuing to network and bring those available to us so that way we can help as well. One of the big things of being in a large corporation is sometimes you get isolated from what's going on every day. And so for us, keeping us grounded, and that's really what the women and the people in this room can do, is help keep us grounded and not get too far from what will move the needle.
That's so good. Thank you, Ryan. Judy, what about you? How can WIMNA help support your initiatives?
Well, our thinking is how do we help others, but so how, in turn, how can it help us, giving us this exposure on what we created for this industry when we launched 5 years ago. EPARTRADE means electronic performance and racing trade. We just put the racing industry online from grassroots, sprint and midgets, all the way up to F1, circle track, drag racing, everything. So just the ask here, you're welcome to sign in. It's complimentary to sign in as a racing business, a service, a professional race team, a manufacturer, a distributor, anybody that is an actual racing business. Feel free to sign up in EPARTRADE and enjoy the platform. So really just the exposure given to us is, I can't thank everybody enough.
That's so good. Like Mia said earlier, the word symbiotic, and I think that really is what WIMNA has created, just a beautifully symbiotic relationship between all walks of motorsports, and that's so valuable. Pippa, how would you use WIMNA to encourage or influence what you're working on?
So the big thing is that Shift Up Now is incredibly small. It's a very small team of people. It's myself, Erin Vogel. We just added Sarah Montgomery. So we're a very small organization trying to do something very big, and we're very focused on this very, very, very tiny part of the women in motorsport industry. So we're so proud to be associated with, sort of under the umbrella of, if you like, of Women in Motorsport North America, as this little tiny organization that gets to be associated with a group that is doing such amazing things for so many women in all aspects of motorsport, far beyond what we're able to do as Shift Up Now. So that's a very big thing for us. And then to everybody in this room, if you sign up to be a Shift Up Now member, right now our website does not look very pretty when you sign in to be a member. Give us about 2 weeks to launch our new platform. And hopefully you will think that is pretty cool, and we would love to have as many of you as possible join our community and help us to continue to grow Shift Up Now so that we can do more, help more racers, and drive more change in this sport.
That's so good. Mia, how can WIMNA help you build your community?
Well, I understand there are 60 women racers in this room, and I believe that having a model and modeling women behind the wheel is so important. So something simple like having a webinar for my 150,000 members to have the women speak about their experiences and how they got there, their challenges, because it is not without challenge on a race course, whether you're a man or a woman. And just being a role model and maybe publicizing that within my organization would be fantastic.
Mia, maybe you and Pippa should talk about how Shift Up Now can help that too.
I think that's a great idea.
Let's connect.
There's a symbiotic relationship right there.
We're building another community within a community. I love it. So we have just a couple minutes left, so I'll ask one last question, and we'll try to keep it just like a snippet, okay? What's one piece of advice you would have for women, or really anyone in the motorsport industry that is looking to grow or maximize the community they're in? We can start with anyone who's ready.
Can I make it just advice for women in motorsport in general?
Sure.
So I think the key thing is determination. Everybody in all walks of life, we all face hurdles, but as a woman entering into this sport, while the community is more open and more engaging than it has ever been previously, your level of determination needed to succeed is not to be underestimated. I have been called many things during my career. Some of them very, very, very less polite ways of calling me determined. But I take all of those less polite things as a compliment, because without that mindset, without that bone of steel running through me, I would never have made it. And so that's the biggest advice I can give to anyone whom is striving and pushing in this room. Have that backbone of steel, that determination. That's what's going to get you through.
Thanks, Pippa.
I would like to say, if there's anybody in this room that's never been behind the wheel on a racetrack, even in skill development, to take the opportunity to learn some of the skill sets that you learn on a racetrack can absolutely be ported over to the real life world, which is a lot scarier driving, especially on the DC Beltway. But just get behind the wheel on the racetrack with an instructor in the car to teach you your vehicle mechanics, learning the great way to shift and your threshold braking, oversteer, understeer, learning about your car, because of those skill sets that you can learn even in a clinic or a one-day thing on a racetrack will keep you safer on the road.
That's so good. Judy?
For myself, I saw it as a benefit to be a woman in a man's sport, basically. The girls at PRI did circles around the boys. I just always think the women are the backbone. But what I would suggest as advice is to listen to your customers, listen to everything you can. My mentor was Steve Lewis, the founder of PRI. Learned so much from him, but I really learned from my customers as well. So I just think listening is so important. Learning the culture of a business, that's huge.
That's so good. There was somebody at my table, actually, and this morning, it's her first time here, so that's exciting. And she said, I'm just looking forward to being a sponge and just absorbing everything that's here this week. And I think that really just captures what you're saying, whether that's people you're listening to as customers, as leaders, that's so important. So thank you, Judy.
I'm going to go with the other side of Pippa's coin here, because I think there's something really, really pertinent that everyone kind of needs to hear. And as motorsport continues to grow and the excitement around it grows, more people are going to be interested in it. It's already a business that is very, very tough. High levels of churn, especially early on. And so grit and determination. If you look at a lot of the folks who have made a difference in motorsport, they've lasted the longest. And it's a war of attrition as you're kind of coming up within the space. And so determination, I think, is a great one, but I think the networking is key as well. So when you are working early on, you don't know who's going to be there 10 years from now, 15 years from now. That grit and determination and that networking is going to be imperative for you to break in, but also to stay around, because you're going to have to bounce around within the automotive world, the motorsport world, and the connections are going to be the best way to do it. So it's a very, very tough industry. Everyone in this room has had a great start and has been here a long time or is interested in getting into it, but determination and grit, because it is a massive attrition as you continue to move up and stay within motorsport, whether it's long track days, long hours, supporting the team, making a run to Walmart at 1 in the morning to get oil because you accidentally busted. Right? I mean, that's happened. I can't even tell. So really, when you look at it, I would say it's that side of the coin. You have the determination, and then on the other side is networking.
That's so good. Cindy Sisson, I was telling her a story a couple of weeks back during Petite, and I think it works for this building a community aspect too, that I'll just kind of leave and encourage you all with. During Petite Le Mans, there was a very brief panel that happened as well that was hosted by WIMNA, and I was telling Cindy how like in that week, I had gone just to go get a glass of wine somewhere, and I ended up making friends with some of the people who were there who were younger women, and they kind of asked, we started talking about what I do for work, and they were really interested in it, so I invited them, and they ended up coming and listening to this panel, and since they have had multiple job interviews within the motorsport industry, and so I would just, as we're talking about building community, highly encourage, be open, be welcoming. Even, I'm very young in the industry, but I always want to share this sport, share this space, and so I would highly encourage you to just be an advocate for others as well, because it is a tough industry. You have to be willing to bounce around, to learn new skills, and absorb a lot. So before I close and we all say thank you, I think one last piece of sharing community and really investing in people is that we don't know where they're going to end up. And as there was mentioned, there are around 60 female drivers in this room. So can we have, if you are a female driver, can you please take a stand? Yes! Isn't this so beautiful? Thank you all so much. We really just, as we talk about this community, we want to show you what the impact is, what the value is, the fact that this event grows every year. Obviously, there are things happening in this community, and I cannot wait to see where it continues to go through WIMNA and other organizations that support it. So thank you all so much for joining and for listening. Thank you, guys.
Ava, excellent job. Great conversation. There's also some male race car drivers in here as well. You can stand up too. Well, did one go to the bathroom? Where's John? There's cars. Oh, just quickly, guys. There's 2 cars in the parking lot that are currently still on. Oops. Just sneak out the back. Don't tell anyone it's you. One is a BMW X5, license plate CWV1409. And the second one is a Nissan Altima with license plate CWV7668. Is someone going to admit to it, or are we just going to continue on? This sounds like something I would do, actually. Well, the buttons are everywhere these days. Just real quickly, we do have the live stream that is continuing on, just on the backside of this panel and how dynamic it was. If you want to share that out to your friends, family, anyone that may want to join in, it is on the WIMNA website. That's womeninmotorsportsna.com. If you go there, it's on the homepage. It is also accessible through YouTube. And we are live all day. For our second group panel discussion, this one is themed in the global impact of women in motorsports. And this one will be presented to you by IMSA. Women in motorsports all over the world are facing the same but different challenges as a reflection of culture and diversity. This panel will bring awareness to those in search of clarity and solutions. Our moderator is John Doonan, the president of IMSA. As president, he's been in that role since 2019. John is responsible for the operation of the sanctioning body, which sanctions 7 different race series in North America. John spent the previous 17 years with Mazda North American operations, where he served as the director of motorsports. A lifelong motorsports enthusiast and native of Chicago, the first racetrack he ever attended was Road America. John is also a part of WIMNA's working group and an ally of the program. And in my ability to stalk John, he has a quote, and I'm a quote girl. So I'm going to bring you up this way. But John's quote in reflection of how he goes about his business and his effort in this community is, always do the right thing. You will surprise some and astonish the rest. John Doonan. Irana Irana Ahmadova is the head of HR and workforce for the Baku City Circuit operations. Irana has a diverse background in human resource management, has developed inclusive recruitment strategies to increase representation of women in traditionally male-dominated roles, and implemented training and mentorship programs for youth to empower in enjoyability and self-confidence. Irana is the author of numerous publications on workforce management and youth development. Thank you for joining us. Kate Bevan is the strategic advisor to the board of More Than Equal. More Than Equal is a not-for-profit organization seeking to find, develop the first female Formula One driver. Kate started out world champion. Kate started out as a commercial lawyer practicing in Oxford before moving into motorsport. Recruited by Bernie Ecclestone to join Formula One management in 2003, she made the transition to Liberty Media when it was acquired in 2017. She started New Quebec Advisory in 2021 with the goal of bringing in new commercial entrants into the sport of F1. Ellen Lohr is the director of motorsport for AVL. Ellen has been in the professional motorsport space for 31 years, was a factory driver for VW, BMW, and Mercedes-Benz. Described as the first woman to achieve an overall Formula Championship win, she is also celebrated as the first female double win in an FIA championship in the last race of her career. A fighter for diversity, Ellen has set up a female engineering program in the Apple Company and is a member of the FIA Women in Motorsports Commission. And please welcome to the stage Mathilde Rebois. She is the executive director of the OMDAI FIA Mexico. She joined the company in 2012, starting as managing director and over the FIA America's president, the FIA's VP right hand, and has had the opportunity to contribute to Mexico and Latin America motorsports development, including safety, technical, sporting regulations, official and volunteer driver training programs, motorsport events organizations, and more. That is wrong. I'm sorry, we're going to start over on that one. Okay. Correction. Mathilde is with the Automobile Club doing the development and strategy coordinator of the 24 Hours of Le Mans fan club worldwide. She also employs over 250 employees and organizes the 24 Hours of Le Mans, Le Mans Classic, French Motorcycle Grand Prix, the 24 Hours of Le Mans Truck. She works with WEC and was present at this year's Spa, Mazda, Monza, and Sebring. She also works on the U.S. market and creation of products for American fans. And just to the lady that I was speaking of earlier, Natalie could not make it with us, but she was originally part of the program as well. Thank you, John.
Thank you so much. Lyn, I got a bone to pick with you already. The countdown clock went from 45 minutes to 40. Can you imagine if Steve and I changed the rules during a race? You said I had 45 minutes. All kidding aside, I don't know if you caught it when Lyn came up on stage this morning, but did you see this? I saw that exact fist pump, double fist pump, at Road America 38 years ago. I was there, 15 years old, with my dad, and Lyn's first IMSA victory was that day at Road America. And that's exactly how she walked up on the podium. So, in fact, last summer, Lyn was inducted in the Automotive Hall of Fame in Detroit, and I was so honored to be asked by her to present her for induction. And in preparation for that, I found a photo my dad took of Lyn standing on that podium, and I texted it to her, and she said, "Where did you find that?" But congratulations to Lyn, to Cindy, to everyone on the WIMNA advisory board and the whole entire organization for what we've pulled off today. And I say we because this is a we, and we'll talk a lot about that here in a moment. with these four badasses. This is so great. I can guarantee you nobody in this room traveled as far as these four ladies. But we're going to start with Matilda. How do you say badass in French?
In French, we say une femme qui tue.
All right. So we're going to make sure everybody leaves the room today with that in mind. Thank you all so much for traveling very far to be here today. I assume and I hope that the energy in this room has already been felt by each of you. And we're going to talk a lot about, as Lyn said in the beginning, growing the sport and how we can work together. And we're going to accelerate together here over the next now 38 minutes. But each of you has a tremendous story of how you've gotten involved in what, of course, I grew up in the sport with my dad and my grandfather, and truly felt it was always a male-dominated sport. But things have definitely changed, much for the better, which I'm super happy and proud about for sure. Pippa stole my celebration, but the Iron Dames team winning in Bahrain was obviously quite special in the 8-hour, and Deborah Mayer and her team and what they've accomplished is incredible. And I think that's just going to be scratching the surface of what's going to continue to come down the road. Irana, let's start with you. Big responsibility. Now 7 years in with the F1 race in Baku City. You talked a lot about in the sort of pre-interview about the challenges of elevating females on your staff and at that event in general. Can you talk about some of the challenges you faced and continue to face in your roles there?
But before that, I would like to say hello to all the participants and to tell you that I am extremely happy to be here today. It was quite a long travel. I had to change 3 flights, but I'm happy to be here at this remarkable event, which is dedicated to the impact women do in motorsporting industry. You know, when it comes to the challenges or complexities, I can say that I'm the lucky one. Since I always received the great support from the senior leadership of the company I worked for. My previous boss and my current boss, they are great supporters of all initiatives and practices that we implement. It is absolutely vital to have support from your boss, to have a shared vision, and they understand that having women around, it's very important when any kind of strategic decisions are being made. And I was lucky. But unfortunately, I understand that this is not the case for all, and we need to empower women further. So currently, I can say that the dynamics within our industry goes upwards rather than downwards. A few years ago, there was a time when I was the only C-level female representative in our executive team. And over the years, Baku City Circuit, this is the organization I represent, they encouraged more women's participation and to promote them. So we, recently we have promoted one lady to lead the security operations, which is, quite common role for the man, which is quite an achievement for us. And we work towards this direction to empower women. But I would like to talk about things that we do for other females. I will say nothing new if I point that women are underrepresented within motorsporting at all levels, irrespective of the country or region. So we need to have a common goal, and I really look for the interesting ideas, and I really hope that participants today will have afterthoughts following today's summit that would propel afterthoughts and would influence the positive change. When it comes to the things, concrete things that we do, I think everything starts from the very early at school. You need to work with young people, with young girls, and the youth development has a strategic importance for our organization. We work with girls and we work towards boosting and enhancing their self-confidence, that where everything starts, and to uncover their leadership potential. I think it's absolutely important when you think about your career within the motorsport. You need to be confident, you need to know what you are looking for. So basically, practices that we implemented had this goal, and I think we achieved it in some degree.
Thank you very much. Kate, backstage, you said to me, this is an incredible event. So thank you for coming all this way to be part of this as well. Obviously, you serve an advisory role to more than equal board. But I thought about, in your pre-interview, an experience I just had at our season finale at Motul Petit Le Mans at Road Atlanta. I was walking down the paddock, and I saw not just female drivers suited up, but I saw engineers, and there's a group over here from Aero. Hi, Kate. I saw women in team management roles. I saw women on the box in strategy roles. I saw women over the wall, pit stops, managing the tire inventory. It was, made my hair stand up because I feel like while it's a ton of work, and a ton of work goes into a meeting like today, but it's also happening authentically. I really, really appreciate and feel that. Talk a little bit about your feeling. We can't wait, you said. We can't wait. We've got to take steps, and we need more role models. Talk about that and your perspective now being here in front of a North American audience.
Well, it's been over 25 years since I started in motorsport, and I've seen a change, of course. I think there's always a danger, by the way, of a little bit of self-congratulatory here. It's still not right. It is still not right that women are represented in the senior decision-making positions, because that's where the power is. So we need to look at improving that. But looking at where they are, yes, there has been huge improvement. And I think over the years, traditional roles of women in motorsport was obviously PR, marketing, hospitality. I was director of hospitality at one time. But that it has become better. We've now got a female CEO of the FIA, and she's great. She comes from Volvo, she gets it, and she's now in a position of power and decision-making and authority. So that's a great thing to see. You see more and more women are now organically, correctly, coming into the technical roles. And it always surprises me. If you go back to 2019 on the Formula One grid, and I can only really speak about Formula One because I'm not that experienced with too many other motorsports, but in Formula One, go back to 2019, you'd have had 4 women sitting on the pit wall as race strategists, head of race strategy, right? And think about that for a minute. You know, these are women at the top of their game. They are directing the race. They're making the decisions that will win or lose that race. You look now at the titanic battle going on between Red Bull and Mercedes, right? You watch the race, look at the pit wall, and maybe don't look at the pit wall, because one of the things those women have done is they pioneered remote working as well, so that they can manage their family, as an aside. But that titanic battle between Red Bull and Mercedes is as much a titanic battle between 2 very powerful women who have brains the size of Arizona, right? And they are fighting it out between them. You've got Hannah Schmidt at Red Bull, and you've got Rosie Waite at Mercedes, and they are writing incredibly complex software to do race simulations, and then during the race, they are directing how that race goes for the team. And I think that that's a story that doesn't get told enough, actually. You know, when you're watching the next Formula One race, watch this as a battle between Hannah Schmidt and Rosie Waite, because that's what's going on there. They're making decisions that will win or lose that race. That's what's happening now, and it's fantastic. And I wish we would see more visibility for that, for no other reason than role modeling. Because I saw an interview with one of them who said she went into engineering because her maths teacher's daughter was at university studying engineering, and she thought, I didn't even know that was an option. It starts there. It starts with role models, and they need to be seen.
Much like the race car doesn't know who's behind the wheel, the laptop does not know who's tapping on the keys either.
Absolutely right.
And so appreciate your perspectives, of course, and we'll come back around and talk a little bit about the role of females have played and continue to play in the work that we need to do. Ellen, the brand you represent, AVL, Steve and NASCAR, myself and IMSA, proud to partner with you as a development tool for so many of our technical aspects of our programs. You come from a little different experience. We've got a lot of folks that race on asphalt here, but you, much like Lyn actually, have raced so many different platforms. The one that intrigued me the most was the Dakar Rally and your experience there. And we're going to come back again on this, but cultural differences have changed around the world about females and their roles in motorsport. Talk about that in your career and how it relates to your experience at Dakar.
Well, first of all, it's great to meet you in person, as the company was proud partner of IMSA this year. Exactly. Well, a lot changed, of course, and the ball is rolling. We all know that, we all feel that, we all see that, and globally, because this is about the global impact, we see that the ball for women in motorsport is rolling in from all aspects, meaning engineering, behind the laptop, as you said, and in the race car and everywhere else. Though I have to say, most of all, we see them still in marketing communication. Nothing about that against that. I am in marketing communication as well. But that is where we are reaching nearly 100%. Though Lyn, you said no earlier, actually one of my role models in former times, you said we were mainly discussing with guys who had the budget, and that is changing now a bit as well. But you see, even in marketing communication, there is place to do better in the end. The women need the budget when they make the decisions. And talking about Lyn, I drove in completely different times. I mean, the 90s, we had to do everything ourselves. And yes, I drove a long while. I drove 31 years in professional motorsport, earning money with motorsport. Not in the very first years, but let's say 25 years earning money in motorsport. And that you cannot only achieve when you are good as a driver and have a talent. This is the necessary you need. You need the dedication, like Pippa said, a lot of dedication. You need to be wanting to work crazily beside the racetrack, because this is still today a race you also have to win, the race beside the racetrack, meaning PR, marketing, selling yourself, sponsor connections, networking, etc. That did not change. I think nowadays it's much easier. Because when I say Lyn was my role model, it's true. When I heard that she was racing as a woman Indy 500, that was like, I was a professional already for Mercedes and DTM and quite successful, but I heard about this woman in the US driving Indy 500, quite successful. That was like, wow, it's incredible. Nowadays, we are so well connected with initiatives like More Than Equal. We potentially hear more about later with social media, with LinkedIn, with everything what is going on in the digital world, that we know more or less every single woman working in motorsport all over the world. And that is very, very good, and that is something we have to take for us. And so I think, yeah, it's getting easier. Nevertheless, it's a lot to do. And it depends very much still, not only on the initiatives, but first of all on the individuals. I do my part, I can say. I set up in our company, and it's a company with 12,000 engineers, so it's not a small company. I set up an ambassador program, which I do completely from the beginning, strictly diverse, 50-50 women. Two of our women are women of color on top, so I see talent, but also take the diversity aspect into that. We set up a female engineer program, meaning giving them the chance to work in our motorsport department, first within the company, but we want to roll that out worldwide because we have 45 or something affiliates worldwide, also in North America, to where women can get as engineers into the sport, because it's still the same. We have women, they are visible now, which is also very different from before when I was a professional. I retired in 2016. But it's still not enough, of course. We can all align to that. And also still missing, Steve, in the top classes of motorsport. There's no woman in Formula One, no in NASCAR, no in IndyCar. And what I, at the moment, and that would be my second advice or my second thought on that is we have to speak loud. We have to make our point. We have to demand. Because I personally can say after 40 years or 40 plus years, whatever, in motorsport, I'm tired of being too nice. Let's say like that. Yeah.
There you go. Exactly right.
Yeah. Decades of discussions. Now is the time to demand, and that I can very much relate to. I don't know where she's sitting, Pippa. To everything you said, with the same emotion coming up. When we are talking about women in Formula One, in NASCAR, in wherever racing at that point, we are not talking about one woman, 100%. And we have to speak with one voice about that. This would be a wish from my side. We have to demand for more women in the top classes when it comes to racing. Because it's not only the only point where I disagree with you, Pippa, about the funding. The funding is important. Without funding, there's no motorsport, either you're a man or a woman. And I equally do not understand why it's so difficult for women, because a woman in the top class being successful would be such a huge marketing communication impact. Incredible, we all know that. So there's no reason to not fund women at the moment, potentially even more. But we need more driving women in the top classes, and we should all together demand that. So every time in a discussion, when you have a camera in your face or when you have a microphone to speak into, if somebody is asking you, who do you think will be the one woman in Formula One, for example, because I'm from Europe, so it's more Formula One, or NASCAR, or IndyCar, or wherever, directly say, we do not want one woman, because this is like a quote or something. This is like a giveaway. We want more. We want an equal part of the top classes as drivers as well. Yeah, so what was the original question?
Your answer was perfect. And, you know, Steve touched on it very early this morning, as the Jill mentorship program. So congratulations on what you've done at AVL. And actually through Women in Motorsport North America, our partners at Bosch have established a very strong program. And we hosted, I believe, a couple dozen females at Indianapolis at our race there in September, Jacob. And giving those opportunities early and often are what we need to do. And I believe there's many brands in this room, AVL, Bosch, Gainbridge, that are putting their money where their mouth is, or taking action versus words. And we need more and more of that for sure. So thank you, Ellen. Matilda, we've worked together for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think our work together is right at the topic here of sharing ideas globally. And your work on growing the fan base of the ACO and WEC has been tremendous. And we sat at lunch together in June at Le Mans and continue to share ideas. And we're so glad you could join us at Petit Le Mans. But talk about your thoughts. And again, in your pre-interview before we came up on stage a few weeks ago, you talked about women being fascinated but not committed. What did you mean by that?
I mean, because I'm working on the field during the 24 hours of Le Mans, I'm in contact with fans and especially our members. They are fascinated about, you know, the speed, the cars, and racer too. But I mean, it's pretty hard to make them committed in our club, because they think it's a man thing. I mean, well, they are here to have more information about our club. They stand just here in front of me, and there is a husband just next to her, and she just listener. And I speak more with her husband, but she's not like an actor, because I mean, mentally she has a barrier. Because it's a man thing, so I will be here because my man will be here, but I won't be by myself on track. And for me, it's it's a big issue and it's a challenge that I face in Le Mans, because in France, in the club, to be honest, we have maybe 15% of women, and this is pretty low. And what I would like to do is to, catch women on the track and say, okay, you're a woman, you're passionate, you feel comfortable to speak with me because I'm a woman. I mean, to be honest, being a woman is, and speak about the club and my passion of the motorsports, it's a good icebreaker with them. So they feel more comfortable with me. They are fascinated by, Le Mans, the reputation, the image of endurance and everything. But to catch them and being committed in our club, because in our club we are not only, it's not only about passion of 24 hours of Le Mans, it's beyond for me. It's being a fan of endurance, but also of motorsport. All fans of motorsport are welcome in our club. And yeah, so I have to make more effort to speak with her, to speak with them, and sometimes it works and they become a member of our club. And I told them, do you want to be more involved? It's possible if you want. And now it's icebreaker, so I continue to speak with them. And I proposed her to become like a volunteer, because you can be a volunteer during the 24 hours of Le Mans. We have many missions for them, and sometimes it works, sometimes not, but I really want to increase the commitment of women in our club. It's really important, and I mean, they have so much ideas, because I think as a woman, of course, I'm working for a development of the club and for the 24 hours image worldwide, but I think everyone can have a good idea, and I mean, I'm open to speak with all people, especially women, because of course they're gonna have maybe idea that I can put in place to attract more women in our club. So yeah, I feel like I can do more, and I hope I will do more in the future. And it's, yeah, I really want to do more for them and be committed in our club and live the experience that they deserve, because yes, we are a club in Le Mans, but you can live your experience as a member worldwide in United States, but also United Kingdom, in Japan, in Italy, in Belgium, wherever you are. And yeah, it's a challenge for me, but I'm ready to face it.
Excellent. We've talked about this sport being male-dominated. It's been said many times this morning. We're talking now to 4 folks that represent 3 to 4 different cultures. And in those cultures, females are seen and represented differently in leadership roles. Irana, you worked on a project, F1 Sector 16 Purple. Talk about that, because that too is, I think, breaking a barrier of giving women opportunities in what has traditionally been seen as a male role around the racetrack.
Yes, actually, our overall strategy is to encourage more women into motorsporting, and we have implemented several initiatives. And having one sector during the race, it's our sector 16, so we called it purple. Yep. It consists only of females, marshals. By doing so, we encourage more females in motorsporting. We promote the motorsporting across all, all female population. So this is one of the things we did. But I would like to mention a few other things that we did in order to empower and in order to help girls to be in the motorsport. As I mentioned before, everything starts from the very beginning, from the very early stages at school. And we work collaboratively with educational entities. And over the last year, we have conducted a few conferences in a similar format with this, by inviting big CEOs of big corporations and member of parliaments, and by sharing their stories and their practices, they have like this role modeling effect that impacts on girls' confidence, that impacts on their self-awareness, self-worth, and it really helps. We have had a few feedbacks from girls when they come and say, oh, you know, I didn't know that before, but after this conference, I want to do this, or I want to do that. I think that I'm clear about my career. So all those things are really helpful in overall. And recently I was reading one book called Voices of 100 Women Who Use Their Power to Empower. And the one one quote was that if you have a platform, if you have a target audience that you can deliver any message, it means that you already possess a power. So we just need to reflect our power in proper direction and to use those things such as conferences, networking, and to increase awareness about this. So honestly, I think so far we don't have F1 driver being Azerbaijani, but I hope that with the time it would happen. If we look at this point in a wider perspective, this is not only about nurturing future engineer or future driver, F1 driver. This is also about motivating someone to become an engineer, team manager, to operate within the motorsporting industry, you know, and I think all those works, they would help. I hope so.
Thank you. Kate, you said we need more role models in your pre-interview. Talk about your role models and how you then decided that this is the place for me.
There weren't any female role models for me when I joined. There were plenty of male role models for me. So I ended up dressing like a man a lot, put it that way. But I think that's changed so much now. And I think anyone who's been around for, you know, a couple of decades will have seen that change hugely. So the role models, there are role models now, and they are incredibly important. And I think I have a problem sometimes with the visibility that women working in motorsport are given. And without that visibility, you are dampening down the role model effect that they can have on other women in the sport. I think that's really important. I mean, this is partly why we've had several comments today about, you know, it's not about one woman driver in the top tier, but it is about the first one, right? It is about the first female Formula One driver and world champion, because they're the ones who become the role model for thousands below of girls at the age of 8 or 10 to go karting. They're the ones that produce the fatal crack in that ceiling. So, you know, I think that's why we're doing what we're doing at More Than Equal. It is incredibly important to have that first female, not just in Formula One, but winning and as world champion. And then after that, the rest will follow. We have to have a 50-50 grid, no?
Ellen, AVL has customers all over the world, and each year at the Rolex 24, Jim France hosts a chairman's breakfast, and there's representatives from all automotive brands representing different cultures and countries. How do we carry the same language? You've come all this way to be part of a North American conference. How do we speak the same language across the sport, but mainly across the globe, and share ideas that can impact not only what's being done here in North America, but what's being done in Europe and all the other countries around the world?
by sharing these ideas and thoughts and values worldwide. And we are able with today's communication possibilities. I give you a little example. We have a potential project in Saudi Arabia, and I was speaking to one of the guys from the energy ministry, and we were thinking about a demonstrator driving on a racetrack, and he said, "Whoa, we have some really great female race car drivers in Saudi Arabia now, in a country where 3 years ago women even were not allowed to have a driving license. We should take one of those."
On the street.
Yeah, exactly. So that was, even for me, surprising, and I took this idea very positive, of course. Or the change you make here, taking, Steve, what you said about NASCAR. The reception of NASCAR, let's say 10 years ago, 5, 6 years ago, was not so positive in Europe, I would say, because of the Confederate flag attitude, let's say like that. And since you changed, companies like us, we suddenly work with teams in secret at the moment, but even think about communicating that next year as an open partnership, for example, because now for a European company, it's a field where we can play and where we want to play. So really that was a big change in the global reception of NASCAR, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, because this is all communicated, it's like the world gets closer together, also in sharing the value of bringing women into motorsport, I think. Makes it easier, but nevertheless, we have to, play the drums loud.
No doubt, no doubt. Matilda, similar question for you, but we're going to come all the way back down this direction. As you studied here in the States, you saw the U.S. culture and women in leadership roles, and maybe had several professors in your program in San Francisco. Who were the role models that stuck out for you? Who were the heroes over time, either here in the States or back home in France, that really gave you the energy to pursue a career in this sport and with the passion that you do? Because I know you have a lot of passion for it.
Yeah, I think the thing that I studied in the United States gave me more knowledge about the motorsport industries, and especially women. And because, even if we all passionate about motorsport, we are pretty different. The mindset is different in France to compare to the United States. And what I like in the United States is everything is possible. And in France, it's more like we found many reasons to not to do, and then we found solutions, So what I really like in the United States is the mindset, and globally when I work in American market or in United Kingdom market, it's really different too. And in United States and the United Kingdom, you have the things more than French people we don't have. It's the club spirit. And it's something that we would like to develop in France, because, when you are a member of our club in France, or globally or worldwide, but especially in France, you have discount on the tickets to buy your tickets over 24 hours of Le Mans, and the sales open before the public for members. So what we would like to do is to create a true community worldwide. And what is really interesting for me, it's during the 24 hours of Le Mans, we organize some meeting between different members from worldwide, and it's pretty funny to see French people meet American people and English people, because they are pretty different, but at the same time, French people have the reputation that we don't know how to speak another foreign language, and but what I observe during our event, it's even if they don't speak English or Italian, they speak the same language of the passion of motorsport. it's the only language that it exists in our hospitality first. And I think it's, when I see that, I know why I'm working in motorsport, because the passion of motorsport is so powerful. In the United States, yes. In France too. It's different, but it's linked for sure.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment to that?
Absolutely, yes.
I think it's, yes, of course, there are global differences, of course, but what unites us is for sure the generations. I have big hope on the young generation, actually, because if you look at the race car drivers, the young generation, they come with such a self-confidence. Of course, they want to go to Formula One, NASCAR, IndyCar, wherever, and why not? Exactly. And we did not, I mean, I speak for myself, but we did not have this because there were no role models, and also there was not the attitude, because everybody wanted to keep you little. Yeah. And of course, I think very many of the 6C drivers can relate to that. You get worse material. Pippa mentioned something like that, different tires, different engines, not enough reps, whatever. So a lot of, let's say, discrimination, not viewable, not seeable, how would you say that? Yeah, which you cannot see from outside. And I think the young generation will demand, because they know what's going on. And that's one very important thing. You have to know what's going on. So this is for the 60 female race car drivers here in this room. You have to know what's going on. You have to better knowing what's going on technically, how the mechanics work, what are they doing, ask your questions, do your simulation work or simulator work, do more simulator work than them if you're able to find somebody who has a simulator, do work more on yourself, better on yourself. And but the point is, don't be only a race car driver. That is what I mentioned before. You have to win the race beside, and that includes marketing, communication, but that includes, of course, the interest and the information you can get from every single mechanic, every single engineer. You have to know what's going on, because during your career, for sure, you will have an engineer who is not good. That happens. They have the same quality differences like drivers, yeah? And potentially you get the engineer who's not on the top level. Then you have to do better. You have to read the data. You have to work with your data, every data you can get in. You have to do all your, you have to, what was the expression in the beginning be like a sponge, exactly.
Exactly.
Show the interest, because this is also a stereotype that women do the driving, they do their Insta stories, they do their sport, but they have no idea about technique. This is important, that you know about the technique. If you're interested in it or not, doesn't matter. You have to, because building a long-term career, not only 2-3 years, builds on these pillars.
Thank you. Kate, quick, we're going to get black flagged here if we don't finish up soon. Biggest inspiration, the individual that inspired you to not give up and to pursue the career that you've had?
I'd have to be Bernie Eccleston.
Yeah.
He hired a lot of women, actually. He hired, in the executive roles, he hired more women than men. Yeah. Not because he was any great advocate of the feminist cause. I don't think anyone could say that about him, but he figured out, but he liked to run an efficient business. He liked to run an efficient race series, and he really liked to run a successful and efficient business. So he just liked having a lot of women around. I would have to put my flag up for Bernie on that one.
Well done. Irana, how about yourself? Who's that inspiration for you to?
I love that question, but I don't know if we can manage it within the assigned
Oh, we're
time.
gonna go over. We're gonna get a drive-through penalty,
Okay. Well,
and
actually-
I'm gonna have a chat with Lyn in the race director office after this. So.
Okay.
We're fine.
So I actually have few examples of role models for me. I absolutely admire Oprah. I like the way she possesses herself. I like how intelligent she is, the wisdom she possesses, and the in-depth research she does whenever she makes any kind of, when she raises any kind of subject. Another role model of mine is Azerbaijani first vice president is Mehriban Aliyeva, and I think what I love about her is her empathic leadership style. And one part of government's job is, of course, to look after the citizens, to support population, but she does that with a very unique approach. She hears people, their concerns, she's very close to people, and I just adore her. But in overall, I think that the best role model for the human should be the human himself. I mean, you should take parts, bits of pieces from certain interesting, influential people and be the best version of yourself. Like, you should be the role model for yourself by yourself. So this is something I often answer because we work with youth, and I'm being questioned about the role models. I think the person should not be very addicted to following one or another person, and in this social media, I think it has more negative impact rather than politics. I might have supporters or people that have opposite views, but I think the most important part is that the person should build his viewpoint himself and trying to be the best version of themselves.
Well said, and we'll wrap up. There's a saying sometimes, be careful in meeting your heroes in life or your role models. In my particular case, I had all kinds of heroes in racing growing up. It's Richard Petty from NASCAR and Johnny Rutherford from IndyCar, Al Holbert, Hurley Haywood in sports cars. But one of my biggest heroes is Lyn St. James. And this, she already knows that. But in this case, I'm certainly glad that I met and can work with one of my heroes in life. And I think for all the young talent in this room, on this stage and also in this room, and Beth Paretta mentioned it, and Jill mentioned it, there's a bunch of folks, mentors and heroes that you need to take the time to listen when they're on stage and get to know. Thank you so much to all of you for traveling so far to be here with us. It's a pleasure to meet you and see you, and God bless in your travels home. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, John, I think you just hit on a point that we're going to create an initiative right now. If you're a student or an intern in the room, please stand up. Being that this is our first break, I'm going to give each of you a challenge. This room, as John just said, is full of heroes. It's full of people that you may work for one day. At the end of tomorrow, if you think you have collected the most business cards, I want you to come see me. And if you know Cindy Sisson, she is inspiration for this because her guest bathroom, the wallpaper, is actually business cards, and I'm not kidding. So that is the task. If you think you have the most business cards by the end of tomorrow, you come find us, and we will have a prize for the winner. Happy networking. We have refreshments in the back of the room. We're going to start promptly in 15 minutes. Social media is a big thing. I don't know if you go check out one of our posts. Katie Kyle is actually watching from Indianapolis on the live stream. Thank you, Gainbridge, but it's a beautiful post. Share along in your memories. Barbara, I got your plaque for you. It's at WWD Summit on Instagram, Facebook, and the official hashtag of today is hashtag WWD3. Thank you, guys. All right, if we can start making our way back to our seats, we're going to try to keep this on schedule as much as possible. We're going to have our first keynote coming up, then a panel discussion, and then I promise you guys will be able to collect again during lunch. Coming off of the back of the Women in Global Motorsports panel, I think our keynote is going to fit perfectly into continuing that conversation. The keynote is rooted in the 5 reasons why diversity and inclusion matter. Stephanie Piamona is the Senior Vice President of Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at the Seminole Hard Rock. She leads a team responsible for creating development opportunities, managing team member resource groups and diversity councils, designing and overseeing mentoring, coaching, and sponsorship programs. She also uses advanced analytics for developing and delivering diversity and inclusion education. Stephanie serves as faculty at the University of California, San Diego's Ratty School of Management. She joined the Seminole Hard Rock after 5 years with MGM. She is also a coach and member of the International Coaching Federation. Stephanie Piimona.
Wow. Good morning. It's still good morning. Let's do that again. Good morning. All right, somebody help me out. What's so good about it? Well, say that again. We're here. Oh my gosh, if we could just take a moment and keep it in perspective, folks. We get to be here. It's good to be on this side of the dirt, yes? Yes. I mean, just imagine for just a moment, while we're sitting in this amazing facility, learning and growing and sharing and networking, there's a whole world of stuff going on around us. Turmoil and conflict, wars, so many things happening. And we get to be here, not have to, get to. Be right here with one another. Oh, it's a good day, folks. It is a great day. And I'm so honored to be on this stage, standing in front of all of you today, on this glorious moment in Arizona, because I'm not sure why I'm here. The closest I've ever gotten to motorsports was dating my boyfriend at 17 who had a souped-up Carmen Ghia racing illegally in the sugarcane fields of Hawaii, where I'm from. Thank you. And I didn't like it, but I liked him, so yay. I have been sitting here all morning going, oh my gosh. I've been doing diversity, equity, and inclusion work for 21 years, shortly after 9/11. I needed to do something that gave me purpose and mission. And I'm sitting in this room for about the first 3 hours, and I am inspired that this work has been going on in this industry without me even knowing. Shame on me. Shame on me. Thank you for all that you do, perhaps for motorsports, but think about the women. That is God, and He likes me. Thank you, Lord. There you go. If you didn't think I was going to say anything powerful, He just confirmed. Hallelujah. All right. But what I was going to say is what you do for women, young women, maybe in this passion occupation, has a ripple effect for women in any occupation and passion. So on behalf of someone who really dives into this work, loves this work, passionate about this work, thank you. Thank you for all you're doing for my daughter, my granddaughter, their daughters, and sons who will be part of this world. I first wanted to just express a moment of gratitude to all of you. So why am I here? Like I said, I don't know a whole lot of your industry, so I'm not going to dishonor you by pretending that I do. But what I do know is DE&I. So what I'm going to share with you is a little story about how we do this in our industry, our organization. Because just like women in motorsports, there is a lack of representation in women in gaming, a lack of representation in women in hospitality, a lack of representation in women in food and beverage, and a lack of women in representation in entertainment. And so although we may not, or I may not know exactly what it is that you do, what binds us is our passion for ensuring that women have access to opportunities. And so I'm going to speak more generally about DE&I. And it's called the 5 Reasons Why. And I'm going to ask for just a moment, if you're willing to indulge me, step outside of your occupation for just a moment. and just sit in this room and listen to me tell a story about human beings sharing a human experience. And maybe, perhaps, what you might gain from this 30 minutes is some takeaways of how you can apply this, not just to your careers and your jobs, but your families, your neighborhoods, your communities, where you serve in the PTA as a mother, as a spouse, as a friend, as a sibling, as a sister, as a partner. All the roles you play in this life. So although this may not be specific to your industry, its principles are universal and its principles are fundamental. How you choose to integrate that into your world will be completely up to you. Is that okay that I share with you our story? It won't be about driving, I'm sorry. I barely do that well already. But really quickly. So as Amanda said, my name is Stephanie P.E. Mauna. As an Indigenous woman who sits in the C-suite, not many of us there either. And so it's very important to me to ensure that even little girls that are Polynesian just like me see me as that role model, that all things are possible. One of the things that we do is we branded our initiative, We Are. You'll see that on the slide there. And you notice that the We Are is embedded into a fingerprint. There's a story behind that brand. We are diversity, equity, inclusion. We are mothers, we are sons, we are fathers, we are autistic, we are veterans, we are friends, we are more than just our jobs. We are people, we connect, and we share. What was important to me when we did the fingerprint was to say to our team members, you get to be a part of the decision-making anytime we roll something out, so that your fingerprints are on all of it. So focus groups. We leverage our team member resource groups. We allow the voices to be a part of the process. When you do that, there's ownership and pride. The other part of the fingerprint is, ladies and gentlemen, as you engage in DE&I work, please know that for whatever reason you do it, maybe for the noblest of reasons or perhaps not, this is legacy work. This is legacy work. Will we leave this place better than we found it? This is legacy work. And it's hard. It's hard work. And it's hard work because it's heart work. And there are often many times that the head and the heart is in conflict. I know what I must do, but man, that's hard. Let your heart drive. Let your heart drive you. Comes and goes, folks. I mean, I do. I've been unfollowed because of it. I've been unfriended because of it. But that's okay, I've also gained amazing relationships, advocates and allies, people who know that this is about people. Fundamentally, diversity is about people. Business first, people always. People always. So I just wanted to share with you really quickly why that's our brand for us, why we engage our team members, not just the C-suite, but the folks that do the work every single day into the decision making. So this is called 5 Reasons Why Diversity and Inclusion Matters. Again, I'm just going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how it shows up for us at Seminole Hard Rock. Anybody familiar with Hard Rock? Ate at a cafe at some point, maybe? You know, what you may not know is that we're in 70 countries. We have 4 divisions: gaming, the flagship guitar hotel in Florida, some of you might be familiar with. We have digital, our online betting. We have hotels like the New York Hotel across the globe, 270 locations, and of course the cafe. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of decisions to be made. And so we work really hard to engage with our team members in all of the decisions that we make related to this topic. So let me jump in to the 5 reasons why. Just making sure that everybody is with me. Everybody say 5. Very nice. All right, this is what it looks like right there. The 5 reasons why. So our strategy, by the way, sits on 3 pillars. People, culture, stakeholders. People, who we are, who we attract, who we develop, who we retain, who we reach out from a market perspective, who we are. Culture is how we behave. What are the behaviors within the organization that creates an inclusive and welcoming environment? And being strong in what is considered the non-negotiables, the non-disrespect. So we set some very clear expectations as to how we should behave. The 3rd pillar is our stakeholders. That's our advocacy groups, our nonprofits, how we represent the organization externally. Who do we partner with? We're a large sponsor of Formula One in Miami and Las Vegas. We love that stuff. But it's also about the brand and how we show up. I'm not sure if you're familiar. It's called Seminole Hard Rock because we are owned privately by the Seminole Tribe of Florida. So we're also owned by an indigenous group of individuals, 4,400 strong. So it's very important to reinvest in the communities in which we serve and operate. So the first one, right thing to do. Someone said it on the stage this morning. That's the easy one. This is the moral and ethical reason for why we want to do diversity, equity, and inclusion. Here's what we say: all team members matter. No one should feel invisible. You know, someone brought up an African proverb earlier. We have one that we use in our organization. It's called the spirit of Ubuntu. Try that, everybody. Ubuntu. It just kind of feels good on the tongue. If we were in the Northern Natal tribes of South Africa, I would not have greeted you with the words, good morning. I would have said, Sawubona. Sawubona. I see you. Imagine the power of bringing the invisible visible and saying, I see you. It's much deeper than a hello, because most of us say it while we're running to the next meeting anyway. It's about fully being present in another person's presence. I see you. You matter. You add value, you contribute, you should be seen. Your response to me would be Sakona. Sawubona Sakona. Sakona, I am here, and I deserve to be. And I have the right to be. And I was born to be. And I own this space, and I own this place. Come join me. I'm pretty cool, if you get to know me. But in order to get to know me, you have to see me. No one should be made to feel invisible. Folks, when you think about the fact that we're still coming out of COVID, when people were in isolation, human beings were not meant to be solitary creatures. Bring somebody into existence. Offer a smile. A greeting. We tie these principles to our mottos. The Hard Rock mottos is love all, serve all, not love some, serve some. Take time to be kind, compassion, charity, goodness, kindness, and all is one. When we all come together serving one mission, one purpose. So the first one, again, no one should feel invisible. Everyone should have access to opportunities. Everyone. So we create these opportunities for leaders within the organizations to identify the processes and systems that create barriers. Our number one job is to remove barriers for people. Because the business decisions are easy when the barriers are removed. So sometimes my team will sometimes call me, not the chief diversity officer, the chief disruption officer. You don't make a whole lot of friends with that title, by the way. But I'm not in it for that. This is about people. And lastly, it's about bringing out the best in your teams through development. Who are we not bringing into existence? Who do you go to lunch with every day? Who's within your circle? Could it be expanded? Who are we ignoring? Who are we not seeing? Who annoys us and gets under our skin, and maybe they just need a conversation? So we think about the right thing to do. A couple of quotes. When the things you say and the things you do are in alignment with what you actually believe, a thriving culture emerges. Your values and your actions create the culture that you're looking for. And I don't know about you, but we're not interested in creating a culture of tolerance. We're interested in creating a culture of acceptance. At the very least, understanding. At the very least, understanding. Can you imagine showing up at a work environment where you're just tolerated? Productivity must be high in that environment, right? So here's what's really powerful about this. This is the one that gets me every time for the last 21 years. But I realize that reason number one may not be enough for everyone to be motivated, bought in, and committed to this thing called DE&I. So guess what? I've got 4 more. Reason number 2. Changing world, changing demographics, folks. The world is changing. Everybody say the word change. Say it's better to say it than to do it, isn't it? The world is changing, folks. The world in which you were born is not the world in which you live, nor is it the world you will depart from. It is constantly evolving. Diversity is about a readiness issue. Are you ready and prepared for an ever-changing world? That's what this is, proactively thinking about what is to come. Language evolves, right? Systems evolve. The workforce of tomorrow have different needs. How many of you in the room raised a millennial? Oh, not many of us. How many of you know a millennial? How many of you are a millennial? Oh, Lord. They're grown, by the way, right? Remember when we used to say those kids today? They're grown up now, right? And I raised 2 of them, and they want instant gratification, and they want the CEO job. You know why? Because I told them they could. I did that. I created that. Shoot for the stars. Don't tolerate a bad boss. Just go on. I did that. And now I lead that on my teams. Generations, 5 folks are in the workplace today. 5 generations, and they don't see the world the same. Traditionalists, boomers, X, Y, and Z. And we thought the millennials were shaking things up. You just wait for the Zs. You just wait for the Zs. They know technology. They know the digital age. They're running the place. They think they'll run the place. Guess what? Generation Alpha is right behind them. Generation Alpha is right behind them. What are we doing to prepare the next generation of fans, the next generation of drivers? Because they all see it slightly differently. And most people would argue that leading and managing generations is probably tougher than race and ethnicity. But that's what we're thinking about, the changing demographics. The world is changing. I mean, think about what you're doing, women in motorsports, transgender women in motorsports, non-binary motorsports. Guess what? It's coming. Are you ready? Are we prepared? And you would be losing an entire pipeline and talent out there if you're not. And an entire market of fans if you are not. So what are some of the considerations we have to make? It's not about my belief system. It's a business. to ensure that this is welcoming of all. You want to buy a ticket in the stand? We'll take your money. You want to learn how to drive? We'll set up programs for that. This is the new world we are operating in. Some phenomenal opportunities for that. Reason number 3, because when you truly embrace DE&I, you create safe and productive environments. Let me take you back a little bit. It's a little history story to make this point. Imagine an environment where you're made to feel as though you don't belong. So I'm going to take you all the way back to the late 50s. For those who are the international, little history about the United States, we were desegregating or integrating our schools back then. The images you see right there is from something called Central High School, and it's about the Little Rock Nine. Anyone familiar with that story? Very good. For those of you who don't, for those of you, it's a reminder. For those who don't, let me share with you a little bit about this. While we were desegregating our schools, 9 black children were invited into Central High School, Little Rock, Arkansas. What you see on the screen there is the welcome committee. Go home, you don't belong. Now, granted, it was the times. This is the late 50s. This is the late 50s. We wouldn't think of that happening today. Now, let me just describe to you, as written by Melba Patilla Beals in a book called Warriors Don't Cry, one of the 9 students who was being integrated into that school, of some of the things that she experienced. Now, for those of you who have children in school, imagine, if you will. Razor blades on peanut butter left on their seats and their chairs at the desk. Their clothing robbed from their locker rooms so they are embarrassed and humiliated after physical education, running through the halls naked. Children walking so closely behind them that the back of their heels are being scraped and bloodied. And the National Guard, who was there to protect them, really didn't care. Not until Eisenhower sent in the airborne 101st did that shift, because it was no longer the state, but National Guard. Then they were sent to protect them. Now, the point of the story is this: how much, if you're in that environment, arithmetic, history, social studies, you think you're learning? What do you think, folks? Not much, but you're probably learning how to survive. So fast forward to today, our work environments. Now, I don't think anybody, I'm not suggesting anybody in this room or online would think of putting razor blades on peanut butter and sticking them on your desk. Gosh, I hope not. But you know what we do to one another every day? What I like to call the thousands of tiny cuts that we inflict on one another every single day. The moments of disrespect, the moments of dismissiveness, the microaggressions and micro-inequities, the little things we say, well, that was harmless. Why is everybody so sensitive? You don't have to be cruel to have the same kind of impact. So leaders and all of us in the room we got to check ourselves in how we behave, especially when we're in the work environment. I can't tell you what to do in your homes, in your neighborhoods, in your communities, but goodness, at least when you're on a team, one of the 2 attributes of a leader that I think is so phenomenal and yet so often not embraced: surrender. It's not about me. Surrender. It's not about me. It's about the whole. And to eliminate some of these things right here. By the way, I found this article. I don't know, anybody heard of quiet quitting? Right? These are individuals that are not loudly quitting, they're just disengaged. They're just disengaged. And a recent Gallup poll came out and said the number 1 thing employees and team members want, the number 1 thing, number 2 was pay, higher pay. Imagine that. was a good boss. The number one thing, a good boss. Oh my gosh, folks, what does that tell us? They didn't even say a great boss, they said a good one. This is about safe and productive. Who are we engaging with? Who are we ignoring? And do yourself a favor. Someone said it brilliantly on the stage earlier. If they're non-performers, release them, please. The greatest gift you could probably do is release someone who's not adding value. Because I tell you what, they know it. They know it. So release them or invest in converting. Or invest, and that takes a lot of time and a lot of energy most of us don't have. So safe and productive environment. Number 4, risk management to the brand. Maintain your company's strong image and reputation. I'm gonna give you some examples because you probably have seen this. First one, Dove. Anybody see this commercial? You can wash away your blackness and be white. Ooh, ouch. That did not go over very well. Heineken. Maybe some of you saw this commercial. Beautiful bar, scene, and the bartender slides the Heineken across the bar, and it's passing all of these beautiful dark-skinned individuals until it lands in the hands of a light-skinned woman. Lighter is sometimes better. I know, right? You're stunned. Where was quality control? Or better yet, where was diversity of thought at the table when that was being reviewed? Who are we not inviting to say, hey, we think that's gonna work? I don't know. Many remember Dolce & Gabbana? Thought it would be funny. They're gonna have their huge annual fashion show in China, so let's have a Chinese woman eat spaghetti with chopsticks. Hilarious, not so much. They had to cancel that fashion week. H&M, cutest little monkey. For those of you who know the history of the word in the Black community, that didn't fly over very well either. Now, what you might not see, though, is right next to him is a beautiful blonde-haired, blue-eyed child that says, King of the Jungle. See, the images we take in, folks, those things that we see sometimes reinforce the stereotypes and biases. Gucci, I'm just gonna let that one linger there. Another one, Nivea, white is purity. And of course, the only brown pop on the box happens to be a janitor. Now, granted, every single one of these organizations have done amazing things since this. And sometimes you have to do the fail to fail forward better. But if we can prevent it, if we can minimize the risk, if we can invite people to the table and say, hey, what do you think about this? If you can increase your cultural intelligence about your market base, your fan base, and your employee base, then the risk is minimal. Always gonna have it though, by the way, folks, too many human beings. But it's about minimizing that risk. Some of you may have seen recently, 130, it costs too, by the way. There's money associated. By the way, we also saw many CEOs lost their jobs over one tweet. Am I right? One post. Choose your words with care, folks. Choose your words with care. Oh, I lost my, is it there? God's having no more. Is it up there? Okay, thank you. Does it say the Raiders guy? Thank you. Okay, I lost my monitor. Sorry, folks. So, you know, the only reason why I bring that up about the coach of the Raiders is because those offenses that caused him to lose his job happened years ago. So what's the point, folks? Even your history can catch up with you. So we may want to do an inventory of some of our past experiences. Last one, strategic advantage, the business case. Thank you, it's back. Position ourselves, if you want to be the employer of choice for women, right? What's that going to look like? Improve organizational performance. I think someone on the stage said something like, this gentleman surrounded himself with women because he knew they were going to perform or be more effective or whatever the adjective was. I love that idea. It reduced the lawsuits and complaints, increased morale and productivity, enhanced leadership effectiveness, and business expansion. DE&I is a force accelerator. It can drive everything about the business, including profitability if you embed it meaningful across the organization. What I have found is that the most meaningful DE&I initiatives are those that are actually integrated and not separated. That they are integrated and not separated. I hope I get to a place in my lifetime where roles like mine don't need to exist. That things like female is not an adjective for leadership, but a noun. But we're not quite there yet, folks. But I know that what you're doing and what you're committed to doing, even in this space and in your world, for women, and the work that I do for young girls at risk, vulnerable to human trafficking, vulnerable to abuse, vulnerable to drug, and vulnerable to addiction. I know for a fact that the work you are doing matters. I'm telling you, the work that you do matters. You may not always see the benefits of what you're doing, but trust me, it's there. Thank you.
Wow. I think everyone was leaning into that one, Stephanie. Our next panel, on the back side of that, which I think, I don't know who did the scheduling of all these, but they all flow together, so well done on agenda. Because this one is going to broaden on that conversation that just was. The next discussion is on creating more seats at the table. It is going to be presented by Bosch. If it is statistically proven that the companies that have women in leadership are more successful and profitable, then why aren't more women in roles of power? As moderator of this panel, Beth Paretta has been quoted as saying, "One way to help create change and growth is to create more seats at the table." This discussion will be focused on how to expand more opportunities for women's voices and their significant influence in power positions. Let's welcome up Beth Paretta. She is the founder, owner, and team principal of Paretta Autosport, the first woman Ford team in the IndyCar Series. In April 2022, Beth and Lyn St. James launched the Women in Motorsports North America. And if you haven't heard this story, track down Beth or Lyn. It is epic. Beth also serves on the board of directors of the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America and functions as global marketing delegate to the FIA Women in Motorsports Commission. Beth has been named a game changer, a power player by Sports Business Journal, and an industry influencer by the Automotive Hall of Fame. First up, we have Jim Jordan from the SRO America. He is a series manager for SRO America's TC America Series and the Toyota's GR Cup that celebrated their inaugural season this year. Joined SRO after a long career in Mazda North America, where he was one of the architects of the Mazda Motorsports ladder. Jim has worked with Lyn St. James for 20 years presenting motorsports marketing seminars to her young racers group that has now evolved into Women in Motorsports North America. This is his third year attending the Women with Drive Summit. I did see you stand earlier, Jim. I do want to just make quick mention, Carolyn Jackson, she's the Vice President of Brand and Strategy for Barrett-Jackson. She was going to join us here today. I do know that some of her representatives and some of her employees are in attendance, so thank you for being here. Carolyn, unfortunately, is not able to make it for a family matter. And Stephanie, back to the stage. I don't know what else I have to say for you. That was epic. Jacob Bergenzi is the director of Bosch Motorsports North America. He serves as the director of motorsport at Bosch in North America, managing successful programs across IMSA, WEC, IndyCar, and NASCAR. He spent over 17 years, the majority of his entire career, with Bosch. Committed to mentoring and supporting unrepresented communities in the industry, in 2023, he spearheaded Bosch's Motorsports Electrify Your Career in Motorsport events, inspiring and guiding career-minded women to achieve their goal of breaking into the motorsports industry.
Thank you all again. Thank you to everybody also watching from home on the live stream. Happy to have people, and we actually just saw the map. Cindy pulled it up. We've got people watching from all over the world. So very excited that this has grown so much. So thank you to our panelists for joining us, and also the late substitution by Jim, who is a trooper and has been a supporter of Women in Motorsport North America from the very beginning. So we're talking about creating seats at the table, right? And to just follow on a lot of the things that Stephanie had said, you know, we talk about it's not diversity just for the sake of it, right? It's diversity of thought. And again, as I said even this morning, this is a friendly room. We know that you're here because you're invested. So what we would do with this panel is really talk about how to create sort of, you know, what was the idea that made you want to create seats at the table? How did you do it? Crafting a strategy, and then what kind of maybe setbacks could you have had along the way? Because I think one of the things that we always learn from is sometimes the challenges that people have had, and here sort of the tough, you know, moments, and then there's sometimes better takeaways from that. Because I will say, sometimes we make things look easy. I mean, you look at this room right now. Oh yeah, there's so many women in motorsport. One thing that we have to make sure is that we're not getting complacent, that we kind of keep pushing forward and we keep working together. And I think the other last thing about creating the seats at the table, why I said that, I know I said that last year on the stage, is historically, if you're just using the metaphor of the boardroom and, you know, the woman's seat at the table, there oftentimes was just one seat at the table that might have been that one for women. And so therefore, the other women were kind of fighting for that one spot. And so women weren't necessarily kind to each other. Whether or not we were doing that to ourselves, whether or not, you know, socially it was sort of implied that there was just one spot for us, it has created decades and decades of women not helping each other. I mean, listen, I understand when you're a racing driver, you're very competitive. You're racing against everybody. We know that. You're fighting just to get the drive and just to get the seat. But I'm saying when you're out of the race car, and for all of us in all the other roles, the idea of us helping each other is critical, and that's why days like today and events like this matter, so that we're doing that long term and affecting real change, because it's generational change. Yeah. So with that said, creating seats at the table, we know the values. So we want to kind of go through some examples. So when did you notice an opportunity? In your career, when did you maybe notice an opportunity when you were in a position where you could create seats at the table? What was that opportunity?
Yeah, I've been very blessed to have a long career in motorsports, and I'm going to get to your answer, but first I just want to salute a few of the strong women involved in SRO Motorsports. We're maybe not as well known in North America as we are worldwide, but we are the world's largest producer of GT racing. And within our organization, we're an organization led by strong women. Our CFO is a woman. Our Chief Operation Officer is a woman, so 2 out of the top 3 people in the organization are women. That's worldwide. In North America, Stacy Langham, who's joining us here today, is our General Manager. So basically the person that runs the whole operation in North America is a woman. We keep adding more and more strong, intelligent women to the organization. So I'm just going to toot the SRO horn just a little bit since it's an opportunity. But in my career, I was lucky early on to work with Mazda North America, and we had a program identifying talent, whether it was driver or other talent. And it's really fun to come to a meeting like this, because I not only see some of the young women drivers who were part of the program early on, but young women engineers who have made a great career at Era McLaren, who I joked with her this morning that we've come a long way from Star Mazda. So Mazda had a great program that just empowered lots of people, lots of good drivers, but good engineers, good other things. A great program that John Doonan, who was up here before, and I worked so closely together. I mean, now in my role at the SRO, I have an opportunity to work with companies like Hyundai that has a STEM program greatly embracing women. When I talked to Honda about what they do, they basically said scoreboard and look at all the talented women drivers who have come up through Honda's program. Same thing with basically all the companies we work with. It's a great time to embrace just the opportunities, because it's good for business, it's good for the companies, it's good for them accomplishing their goals to embrace women in all roles.
Absolutely. And you have the, do you want to explain the GR Cup and kind of the role that the seats for
Yes,
women?
obviously the GR Cup is also within my area of responsibility of the SRO. They've put together a great program where Mia Lovell, who's down here, was the top woman in that program this year, and she won a heck of a lot of money from Toyota. Toyota pays the top woman an extra bonus for every race. Mazda, my alma mater, has a great program within the MX-5 Cup, and Taylor, I saw you before, but Taylor Fern is going to be in the shootout. I think it hasn't happened yet, but they're giving lots of women opportunity and extra prize money. So companies are recognizing that it's that the hand up to a woman to provide that opportunity. And it's more than that. It's more than just women, as you talk to. It's just if you provide the opportunity, it's good business for that company.
Absolutely. Jacob, I know specifically Jacob we created these 2 events that we had this year. I would love the origin story. Tell everybody what those events were and kind of how you had that spark of the idea to create some seats at the table.
Yeah, I mean, I think before that, like the pivotal moment for me, like for your first question, was I was sitting and, you know, watching the first season of Drive Survive, and then I watched the Indy 500 when you guys competed for the first time, and that was the tidal wave of change for me in the seat that I was sitting in as the young director of Bosch Motorsport here in North America with a little over 20 associates, and we were seeing the momentum in the industry just change and saying, like, we have to change our approach to filling our talent pipeline. We can't just rinse and repeat the same thing over and over again. And so I just started reaching out to some different people on LinkedIn, and one way or the other, I crossed paths with Lyn and Cindy and had an awesome conversation, and I was like, I want to actually make an impact. I don't want to just be a bystander. So that's where it comes from, is like have an idea and then create action, and that's what we did. We as a team at Bosch Motorsport had an idea to build WIMNA as a pillar in our pipeline, filling our talent pipeline, and said, okay, like, what does that look like in terms of actually delivering something that's going to get us talent in the door? And so we developed this program that I said to myself, like, what would it look like if I was, 19, 20 years old and I wanted to get into the industry? What would that look like? So I threw this idea out to the team. We kind of iterated on it together. And yeah, we did two programs that were awesome this year, one at Portland at Formula E, and then another one at IMSA in Indianapolis. And the program was basically laid out. The agenda was, one, bringing keynotes in, so people that already have experience in the industry, and sharing their path. Like, how did they get there? What were some of their challenges? What were some of their tribulations that they overcame? And then another super important element is knowledge. Like, share knowledge. And in that, what we did was we created these pathways activities, is what we called them. So of those pathways activities, we did a visioning exercise. It was like, we were talking about the quote earlier, someone said that, like, if you can see it, you can believe it. I think the more important part is the backside of that. If you can believe it, you can be it. Mm-hmm. And so through these exercises, we're going like, hey, like, what does that future, that ideal future look like for you for a career in motorsport? And then a very, very important pillar of it was actually, meeting the women that are already in the paddock, already doing these jobs, so through the garage tours and those type of activities. And then we finished up with a round table where we had some of the women come back into the room with these young participants to say, like, okay, like, what are your action items? How are you going to follow up? Do you need a mentor? And working on those different topics. So that's kind of what the program was and how we came about.
I think the critical thing here, Jim, you're mentioning the people at SRO who are behind the scenes, and Jacob, you're mentioning, like, when you saw, like, the very visible, like, our team that was very visible, there was a very specific reason why we did that. I mean, those of us that work in racing know that there are women in it. But that idea to be able to create that generational change is, I always say that I created my team for like 5-year-old me because I didn't have the female role models. I know Kate had said that earlier when people say like, oh, who was your role model when you were a kid? There wasn't a very specific exact, that person looks like me, so if I see it, I can be it. But that idea of just putting the camera on, you know, making sure that you're seeing beyond the driver and seeing these people in the forefront, making sure that events like this are visible, or in, you know, these paddock tours and seeing all the different roles. I think it's really putting the spotlight, and that's certainly a takeaway for anyone in the audience, for your company, whatever you do. Make sure that your website is representative of people. You probably have somebody that works there, but make sure that they're front and center, because you never know who's paying attention. And that kid that you know is paying attention. We're saying about you know, if you can see her, you can be her. Women absolutely react differently to seeing other women. So I always use the example of dating myself when we saw Sally Ride go into space. We have to get better examples like that. That women start, oh, I want to go to space camp because I see her. Mm-hmm. So there's very little easy things that you can do. Stephanie, have you seen that other companies and that the visibility? It's one thing to have them there, but if they're behind the scenes, people don't even know that that they don't know what's possible.
Yeah, it's a great question. Is this thing on? It's not, okay. Maybe it's my thing. Oh, because this is on. I have, and you know, if I could just add on to what Jacob and everyone is saying so far, as right, if you can see it, you can be it. But sometimes, and particularly with women and the studies and the research that we've done, even seeing it isn't enough. So see it for her. Be the person who sees it for her. I have been surrounded by very powerful and strong women like Sally Ride. I still never thought myself in that space. But I had people around me who saw that for me. And I think that's one of the greatest things we could do as a leader is if you find someone or identify someone who's not seeing that potential within themselves, then see it for them. Highlight it for them. Right? I think one of the greatest leadership attributes we can be is to identify the potential within someone who doesn't see it within themselves. And so sometimes you have to be the eyes and the ears for those opportunities. But to your point, Beth, you know, many times it really is about creating opportunities. I've had leaders that have, with my insecurity and my lack of confidence and my wavering self-worth on occasion, because that's just all the parts of who I am, drag me to senior leader meetings for the exposure. Even though I didn't have the title yet, I hadn't had all the education, but they saw something in me that I hadn't seen in myself yet, and so they brought me in. The visibility and exposure is so essential and so critical to gaining that access and to observing what happens in those moments and to be prepared and ready for when the opportunity presents itself. And I love what you say, Beth, you know, I've earned every single one of the gray hairs on this head. I'm an old lady. But I would agree that coming up in the gaming industry, so long history in Las Vegas, I was one of the opening teams of Bellagio under a gentleman named Steve Wynn. You know, it wasn't very women-friendly from that perspective, and we really needed each other. But every opportunity I've ever had in my life has been because of a man. And my commitment is to be the woman who says, we don't have to be the crab in the bucket that pulls each other down. We don't have to embrace the scarcity mentality that some people think we ought to have. It is about abundance. And if it's not my time, it's not my time. Heck, I'm going to enjoy your shine because right now it's for you. And if we could just do that for each other, I think that would be really enhancing the visibility and exposure.
It's not taking their seat at the table, it's creating a longer table.
That's right.
And because the reality is, that's why we're so happy to have all of these men in this room. This isn't the replacement theory, like we said.
No.
So, because obviously when you're new in an environment, a work environment, people are, you know, start to get territorial, and they can. And the only way that we move forward together is to be on the same side.
That's right.
I mean, racing is so competitive as it is, but the one thing that also drives us is we're all alphas. We're all very competitive, but we're self-driven. But there are times that we have to always remember that it is a team sport, and the team gets better, better together. Like we said, going further. Let's talk about challenges that you've had, though. I mean, it's easy to have an idea sitting in a room like this. You're writing it in your notebook, but when you go back to your, your day-to-day life, and let's also be clear. Although yes, when you kind of climb up the ladder, you have more opportunity maybe to create some seats, but you can do this, as we say, in your day-to-day lives. Like you said, open up your circle. Make sure that your friend group is diverse, that diversity of thought. It's just ways to kind of set your course. But what are some times that you might have wanted to reach out and you had some challenges? Jim?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I think I'll point it out. I have one of my all-time favorite drivers here who I met when she was a young woman racing in the Skip Barber Racing Series, so give credit to Skip Barber. And she was someone who was on her way to the top, really talented. And I watched her get distracted by some bad advice. And that bad advice led her down a road that provided challenges for her. As I told her today when I made sure it was okay if I shared this story about her, just because it's, we all have challenging stories, challenges in our life, and she got some bad advice. She might have taken Simona's place on your IndyCar team because she was on that route, but she's now a story of redemption because she just became a champion in a Porsche series. So Ashley Freiberg, congratulations, I'm so proud of you. But the lesson from Ashley is be careful who you surround yourself with. And I loved also the Bernie Ecclestone comment because he's a somewhat controversial character, very driven, but he obviously surrounded himself with very intelligent, very talented people and created this huge dynasty on the backs of the efforts of lots of great women. So just be careful whose advice you take and make sure you surround yourself with the good people. I'd say if you're here today, you're one of the good people.
Jacob, how about you? How about a time when somebody gave you a chance? Somebody took a chance on you, and then how about you putting together some opportunities for others?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest opportunity that I was provided was just when I started at Bosch. I was working in the automotive field, and we weren't doing racing stuff. There was 2 people, and I kept on knocking on the door, and finally, someone provided me an opportunity, and I worked for that person for the better part of my career. So that was a huge door opening for me. What was the second part of that?
Sometime that you had a challenge. Like, did you have? Let's say you created this idea. So you have this germ of this idea that you want to have these events at Formula E and at IndyCar. So internally, was everybody like, "Yeah, here's some money," or were they like, "What?"
No, I mean, I think the biggest challenge was just carving the time out, because it's just like one more thing on the busy schedule of running the whole business, but knowing that we have to make that a priority in order to have a better and brighter future. And I think that was just almost like convincing myself was probably the biggest thing, just like create the time, spend the extra hours, this will be worth it, and it will pay off in the end.
It's easy to push it off. I mean, you guys have all carved the time to come here, and it's easy to, I could be in the office doing emails, so yeah, I mean, it's that sticking to your guns. So earlier, Stephanie, when you said about removing barriers, and I think that's, we talked about this, about creating opportunity. So just a little quick thing. I know it's very easy to always see success, right? And you think that it was easy and just kind of all came together. But I hinted at this a little bit last year, but because not everybody was there. So in 2021, I had this team of majority women in the Indy 500, and I had the idea for it back in 2014, okay? And then we did it in 2021, 7 years. And in 2015 is when I first met with Roger Penske about the idea. And he understood kind of what I wanted to do, sort of. He was very, I've known him for years, so it's very easy to, he'll take the meeting. But I could tell that he didn't fully understand kind of what the idea was, which is fine, because I'm just talking about it in his office. Fast forward to 2020, and Roger Penske buys Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the IndyCar Series, and they eventually announced this race for equality and change. And I reached out to him and I said, hey, what's this about? And he's like, we're not really sure. Why don't we talk about it? Because fair play to them, they knew they had to do something. This was also in the wake of George Floyd, and needing to create programs that would be sustainable and worthwhile, but they weren't really sure what it would be yet. But I give them credit for at least putting the stake in the ground and like, okay, let's kind of figure out how it comes together. But when I met with him and suggested that, okay, let's finally get my team on the ground, get my team on the grid of this majority women's team. And, and his first question, of course, is who's your driver? And I said, Simona De Silvestro. And his immediate answer was like, oh my God, she's great. He said, do you know her? Can you call her? And I said, yes. I had never met Simona before, so I actually lied to him. But I said, I was like, I have an engineer. I had an engineer lined up. I said, we can get some over the wall. We can get some mechanics. We can train them up. And this was back and forth in several conversations. It wasn't just one conversation. But Roger said, no, I just want you and Simona. I don't want this to be a Miss America pageant. And I knew in that moment that he said, just you and Simona. And I said, okay. And the reason I said okay is I just needed to get there, right? Because I had this idea. It was in my notebook. I had a race team in my notebook for many years. And sometimes you just need to say yes. And I figured, all right, we'll build to that. But at least if I can get in the door, maybe we can affect change from inside. So for many months, it was just Simona and I. That was the plan. And I would bring it up from time to time. I do have an engineer. He said, well, do you have her CV? Yeah, here it is. And we can get some mechanics. Now, obviously, because I couldn't poach them from IndyCar teams, it was going to be having to get them from other teams from around the world, around the country that would be available for the month of May. And it was like, I don't know. We did our press conference in January of 2021 to announce the team. And if you look back, if you notice, the team just announced Simona and myself. There was nothing else. And that evening, flying back to Detroit from Indianapolis on the plane, Roger and his colleagues were looking at Google Analytics. And their phones had blown up, as mine had that day. We were on the ESPN sports ticker because we launched this story about there's going to be this for the first time in history. There's going to try to, I had said it, but I was kind of like hedging the bet that there was going to be women, but we had no women, and there was no plan. Peek behind the curtain. There was nothing. It was Simona and I had my commercial team. So I had, a few people standing around me in matching polo shirts. And it looks like a team. But the flight home, Roger, after the press conference, Roger said, did you say that you have an engineer? And I said, I do. Here, can you send me her CV? And I said, I have a spotter too. He said, really? I said, yeah, she spotted for this person, this driver. She spotted for Montoya last year. She's this, she's that. In fact, her now husband is Will Power's spotter. I was like, it's Isla. And he's like, oh, really? And then Roger turned to a colleague and said, what if we maybe had like a mechanic, or could we train them to go over the wall? And I was like, great idea. I don't know, could we? But, so after about a year of badgering him, he came around. And I think, but I understand it though, because at the time, he was an 82-year-old man. He had never seen it, and he couldn't see it. And it wasn't his fault that he couldn't see it. I saw it differently, because I saw how many times I walked into the room and I was the only one. And we all know each other. All the women in the paddock know each other. We know we're there. And so the idea was we have to be visible. And then when Roger got it, he became obsessed with it. We hired these women February 1st, and you'll hear a story tomorrow about how that worked and how the training worked. And from February 1st, we took 6 women who had never been to an IndyCar race, who had never changed a tire, and we taught them how in 3 months to change, to be able to do an IndyCar pit stop. And we had 4 out of 7 over the wall do it. But we would get the training videos, and who was the first person to be watching it as soon as those videos were coming in? Roger, because then he was excited about it, and it was something new. But it was that idea of he couldn't see it. And there's a lot of times that I think people would be more supportive. It's easy for women to be like, oh no, we're not there. It's not necessarily your fault that you don't, that's why I say we have to invite people, because women and people of color do not know that they're invited. My joke is that white guys just walk through the door. Hey, I've been here the whole time. So those are those deliberate actions. You're talking about the microaggressions the other way. How about the micro positive things that you can do? Those positive moments are inviting. And you guys have done that. And with that said, what would you say would be advice to someone now? And like I say, for all levels of your career, what advice would you give to even your younger self or young people now of how can they be inclusive and inviting to others?
Yeah, one thing, and I actually learned this at the seminar last year, and I'm putting it into because I have a daughter who just graduated from college, and as a proud dad, I'm hoping she'll apply for jobs with some women out here. But it's a weakness, or it's something that I think women need to potentially change, because I heard it here, I didn't believe it, and then I see it in her. And that's if it's a man applying for a job, if he has one qualification that even might be closely related to what that is, they'll apply for the job, damn the torpedoes. And my poor daughter looks at every single qualification requested, and if she doesn't have it all, she won't apply. And I'm like, Bella, apply for the job, okay? You've got 1 or 2, just apply for it and see what happens. See if you can talk your way into it. So again, to the women here, don't reject yourself, okay? You belong here. You belong where you are. Don't reject yourself, and just have the courage.
Very well put. Yeah, I think from my perspective, the thing I would impart as some advice on is like getting into the industry in general is not easy. It's hard, it's challenging. It's been said before, like you have to persevere. You have to have grit. Part of grit is effort counts twice in that equation, and just not ever taking no for an answer. I know that's an easy thing to say, but I'll just end with the Wayne Gretzky quote. In that essence is like, you miss every shot you don't take, so take that shot.
I would just say, and it's not as profound as the rest of the amazing panelists sitting beside me, but I would just say, as a piece of advice, do what you love to do and love what you do. When you love what you do, it's not work. It really isn't. And, and find people that you can surround yourself with that want you to be your best self. Ultimately, life is just way too short. Tomorrow's promised to no one. Carpe diem, seize the moment. Do what you love what you do. Love the people who do it with you, even the ones you don't like. Find a way to love them. You don't have to like them. Trust me, I am the youngest of 12 children. I don't like them all, but I love them dearly. But that's like a team. And so one of the things I'll just leave with you all with is COVID showed me that life is too short and too precious to be miserable, to be unfulfilled, and to be unsatisfied. Do what you love what you do, and do it with the people whom you love.
Okay, so with that, just to remind everybody, creating seats at the table, you can do that now. It's not just about expecting your manager to do it, expecting the boss of your company to do it. Everybody has the opportunity to create more seats. You identify the opportunity, create a strategy, execute your plan. If there's pushback, you now have a network of peer-to-peer mentors. When you have that pushback, reach out. There are ways around it. There's creative ways. And obviously with this momentum, ideally, there'll be less and less pushback, and this will get a lot easier. We're not going to be pushing that boulder uphill like we've been doing for so long. Remember to invite people. Invite them to the meeting. Invite them to the audience. Invite them to be customers. Invite them to be fans. And invite them to the table. And by changing the process, we change the outcome. All right, with that, it's lunchtime.
So there are seats at lunch tables now available for us. There's going to be a pedestrian tunnel. Lunch is going to be at Victory Lane inside the racetrack, so follow probably the crowd towards the pedestrian tunnel. If you need to drive, there are spaces, but try to limit that, please. Inside of your credential, your breakout is going to be listed what you signed up for. You'll see that behind the drink tickets. Those are for later. Enjoy your breakouts. Enjoy lunch. Students, again, make sure you find those business cards and share. Hashtag WWD3. Enjoy lunch.